Good evening, everyone. Happy Wednesday. Welcome to the HOKC live stream. You are joined again by me. I'm Brandon, and this is Sam. Good to see you, Sam. Been a while. Actually been, I don't know, probably a week or so. But we're back. We're back strong. We got a lot of stuff to talk about. We got some intro music. Let me know what you guys think about it. And tonight we're going to be talking about a book that I'm reading that I really want to recommend to everybody. I think my hair is again. I'm getting a haircut soon, folks. Getting a haircut soon. My barber is actually out of town. I think he's doing the running of the bulls or something. I was like, what are you doing, dog? Get back over here and cut my hair. But either way, I digress. We're going to be talking about old California. I want to dive into with this concept with Sam, who is a medieval expert, about how California really, until the Mexican-American War and even a little bit past that, embodied this real medieval way of life and social structure, and it's kind of the last vestiges of that on the North American continent that I've been able to find. So we'll dive into that. We're going to dive into the man on the screen right now. Sam, do you know who this is?
I have no, I do not know who this is.
So we're going to talk about a story from the region of California that I'm from, in Central California in the San Joaquin Valley. And this man here is one of the most storied members of a group that, having grown up in that area, I have never heard of, called the California Rangers, which are, you've heard of the Texas Rangers, right? Sam?
Yes, I have heard of
Okay, yeah, I'm just checking.
I didn't know you were talking to me there. Okay, yeah.
Proof of life, just proof of life.
I am alive, but you know, I'm getting over a little bit of something. So if
all the allergies are terrible. Allergies are terrible when it rains here.
Yeah, when it's been really rainy, and then it's just like washes all the pollen off. The pollen just gets everywhere and straight into my sinuses, and they don't like that anymore.
Being a California boy, it took me some getting used to the different, that it could rain during the summer. That does not happen in California. And a lot of the guys that we're going to talk about actually left Texas and came out to California and kind of liked it there for that reason. And this is one of them. Great guy, super interesting story, and perhaps the greatest name that I have run across in all of my Old West history studies. And I've run across some good ones. I've run across Buffalo Hump. He's a famous Comanche chief, which sounds innocuous enough, right? Like Buffalo Hump. But the Comanche don't give names like that. They don't give nice names. What they do is give very uncouth names, like biker gang names. The Cheyenne might give you a name like Running Elk, or I don't know, Swimming Turtle or something, right? And that's really your name. But the Comanche gave names that white culture, Texan or Mexican culture even, couldn't say in newspapers. So Buffalo Hump doesn't mean Buffalo Hump. It means election. It rhymes with election that won't go down. That's right. It's like all the Comanche names are just monstrous, dude. And Quanah Parker is it's really the Comanche's most famous chief. And his name, Quanah, I've read it to mean fragrance or aroma or any other kind of more genteel name for smell, right? What it means is stinker. It means stinker, like little stinker, or a guy who stinks. It doesn't mean they're all like that. They're all like that.
That's like nicknames in the Marines, right?
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's like from what I've heard, right, is like if you've got a cool nickname, it's referencing to a really embarrassing incident, and if you have a really embarrassing nickname, it's because you're awesome. Like, yes, it's referencing something. Like, that's just kind of how it works.
And it's a term of endearment. It's not really. Sometimes it's derision, but yeah, usually. It's a lot of interesting Comanche names, and a lot of them aren't the actual name because they just couldn't print that in a newspaper. And this guy's name, they could print in a newspaper then, but I don't think you could print it in a newspaper today. His name is Harry Love. Can't beat it. Captain Harry Love. He is a he is a bad man. And it's one of those, like, I was talking to my friend about Dick Butkus. I don't know if you've heard of him. He's a famous middle linebacker for the Chicago Bears. On the Mount Rushmore of linebackers, maybe the greatest linebacker of all time, certainly in the discussion. His name is Dick Butkus. And it's like, well, yeah, if you just wanted to create the baddest dude of all time, that's what you should name him, right? Like,
there's a Johnny Cash song kind of about
Boy Named Sue
Boy
syndrome.
Named Sue,
right. But Harry Love, I just thought, like, man, that is an amazing name, and there's a whole amazing story behind him. He is part of the gang that of California Rangers that chased down and ultimately unalived. I got to say unalived for the first 30 minutes or so. Joaquin Murrieta. Have you have spent time? I don't want to divulge too much of your own personal life, but you've spent time in Central California, the Central Coast.
Yes, I also moved from California to
Texas, a transplant. We're giving people more reason to hate us. But did you ever hear of Joaquin Murrieta?
To be fair, I was like a teenager when we moved here, so I had no control. I had no control over my life.
Everybody's gotten excuse.
I would have got out as soon as I could, but you
got here as soon as you could, and you started lobbying for data centers. I know it. I know it's the truth.
Oh no, I did not. And
I'm just kidding. But in your time there, did you ever hear of Joaquin Murrieta?
I believe I have heard of Joaquin Murrieta. That's a name I have heard. I'm not sure. I can't recall where, but I think I've heard that. He's
California's bandit robber. He's essentially their Robin Hood, and especially in California or in California, like the Mexican inhabitants of California were known as Californios before Americans moved in and it became an American state. But a lot of them didn't leave. They were just like, okay, well, I guess I live in California now, right? But they still stayed there. And Joaquin Murrieta, in a lot of ways, became a folk hero. But we're going to talk a little bit about why I think that's a wild misnomer. And the book that I'm reading that's informing the upcoming episode we're doing on Joaquin Murrieta, and how this guy was a terror. He was a bandit, and we were just talking about bandits. We're talking about Moses the Black, the same Moses the Black being a bandit, right? And like what that entailed. Like banditry wasn't this cute thing. Banditry meant like you were robbing and unaliving and pillaging people. It was very violent, very disreputable business. And Joaquin Murrieta was the baddest, most wanted man in California for that, right? He did some terrible things, and this book really draws light to that. But he also, and he did them to Anglo settlers, he did them to the Chinese, he did it to Mexican citizens, he did it to like everybody, and he kind of didn't do it to some people, which is interesting in and of itself. But I want to recommend the book that I'm reading for that. We're going to talk about the California Rangers themselves, and then we're going to kind of break down a little bit about the end of Joaquin Murrieta. Do you know about Joaquin Murrieta's head?
No, I do not.
Okay, so this is why this is such a medieval story, and we'll get into the elements of that. But really, they track this bandit down. There's like a ranging company of what are effectually knights, right? It's like the governor knights these guys to become part of a ranging company and track down these bandit outlaws. But in order to prove that they've tracked down the bandits, this is 1853, really 1852 to 1853. In order to prove that they've tracked them down, they have to bring him his head. They have to take his head off and bring it back to him. So there's this whole saga of these guys tracking him down. They ultimately catch his band and they kill him. And then they go through this grisly business of decapitating him. It's a whole thing. And there's a whole chapter around it. And then they do the same thing to another guy named Three-Fingered Jack. And then they stuff their heads in these like gunny sacks. They didn't even, they know they had to take their heads, but they didn't really bring anything to carry the heads in. So they stuffed their heads in these gunny sacks. And they also cut off Three-Fingered Jack's hand to show that, oh, he's actually Three-Fingered Jack. What do you think, man? When I read that, I was like, well, why didn't you just cut off the hand? Like, why do you have to bring his hand and his head then? Am I incorrect?
Well, got to be really sure, I guess. I mean, it's really morbid for us to think about these kind of things in this day and age, but honestly, this is pretty normal. You know, if you've got to go hunt an outlaw, and it's like, maybe you have like a sketch of them if you're lucky, if you had somebody who could.
Yeah,
do
that's
that.
all they had. Yeah.
But there was a lot of like, so outlaws and people who hunt outlaws, right, are tend to kind of both be peoples on the fringes of society.
Yep, that's exactly
who are not always the most reputable type. Sometimes people who hunt outlaws, like, well, you know, they hunt them because they know how they think. Because
like, I'm not trying to profile, but look at this guy. Look at Harry Love.
Yeah. They're dangerous people.
Mm-hmm.
That you know, they're operating on the side of the law, but you know, in another world, they were not so different than some of these other folks, right? So there was a lot of like, you know, the reason you have to bring back proof, right, is because, well, I mean, you had people who would, you know, decapitate some kind of random farmer, you know,
sure.
and claim it was this person for the bounty, right?
And we're talking about a bounty of thousands of dollars.
Yeah, it's like
thousands.
So it was and you know, and historically, right, there have been instances where people were killed falsely for
sure,
you know, by bounty hunters or whatnot.
And Joaquin had a very specific scar on his face, so they wanted proof of that. Really, the only other option that you would have at the time is a daguerreotype, which isn't that, I don't know if you know about daguerreotypes, but to my understanding, it's like the Coke can photograph where it's like a light goes through a shadow and that imprints itself on a piece of metal.
I'm not familiar with that, but
I'm glad you don't know enough to tell me that I'm wrong, but it's a very primitive form of photograph. So the nearest form of daguerreotype was in Stockton. So I don't know if you're terribly familiar with the Central Valley, but we're about 90 minutes southwest of Fresno, at the very tip of Fresno County on the coastal range. And they track this Joaquin Murrieta all the way down to this little canyon, and they surprise him. And it's a whole thing. The whole episode opens with that. I'll do like a whole episode breakdown in a day or two. It's a good episode intro. But this guy, Harry Love, like came from New York. He made his way to Texas. He fought in the Texas Revolution. He fought in the Mexican-American War. He actually piloted he mapped out a lot of the Rio Grande. He was like a former sailor at some point, and they gave him his own little boat called the SS Harry Love. And he just went up and down the Rio Grande, like Captain Harry Love and his crew. They'd go up and down, mapping out the Rio Grande. He gets tired of that, comes out to California, and they are the guys who are going to combat this scourge of banditry. And, you know, like anytime there are great riches that people are finding, especially anytime before modern days, they're in great danger until you can get that, whatever the riches are. Like, that's why the trade roads were so dangerous, because they're hauling things of great value in between protected places in a very dangerous kind of land in between, right? Like, it's a very treacherous thing to carry your goods in old times. So the gold rush saw all kinds of robbery. It's not like banditry was out of unheard of, but it is interesting that all these places that have developed from the towns that they were hanging everybody. Like, it just didn't even matter. They were just like, you were saying, like, oh, what if they bring back the wrong head? Yeah, like, it didn't seem like they cared that much. They were just hanging people. There was one case where they had like 5 dudes, and they were like, I think it's just these 3, but the posse, the vigilante mob, was like, let's just hang all 5 just to be sure. Like, let's just not leave any ends untied. So it's like San Francisco, San Jose, Sacramento, Stockton, the whole of the Bay Area that's now a tech hub was just,
it's barbaric in a sense, right? But this is kind of what happens, Boone, before you have, you know, these were the borderlands, right? Yeah. This was the border of civilization in really a very literal sense.
As far away from federal control as you can get. Like, you're the newest state, and you're literally geographically as far west as the United States can go.
They don't have the kind of established formal systems yet to kind of systems of justice and courts.
And, you know, speaking of that, that's what I wanted to pick your brain about, is that the reason why they didn't have a lot of that is because California was kind of a nether region to the Mexican and the Spanish government both, where they just like, isn't it weird that California became a state, and then but like it flooded with American citizens, and a year later they discovered gold. And it's because the Mexicans and the Spanish didn't really care. Like they just kind of left California to whoever owned it. So you developed these large ranchos that were relatively uninhabited, and they would all kind of work in conjunction with the mission system, who really ran along the coastline. But everything on the inland was just these massive, thousands and thousands of acres owned by one family. And it creates a feudal system where like they would have local native tribes work for them, or they would have Mexican citizens effectively, but they had very derogatory names for these citizens. And it was a full on feudal system. And like, it would be helpful to have you kind of explain how that worked and how that's worked throughout history.
And this situation in California in many ways mirrored the creation of feudalism in Europe, right? Is because absent kind of a strong, like prior to the development to the kind of rise of feudalism in the dark, what's called the Dark Ages. Now the Dark Ages are named the Dark Ages because people in the Enlightenment liked to think of themselves as more enlightened than men. So whatever.
What a pompous term.
We can get into that later, but the dark, during the Dark Ages and the kind of the rise of the these feudal lords and feudal hierarchies is, well, you didn't have the Roman infrastructure, you didn't have the Roman government to manage things anymore. There was no more like the Romans would have provinces, and there would be an imperial governor in the capital of the province, in the provincial capital, who would be kind of the ultimate authority on matters of law and justice and whatnot. Right. And he would then order out troops to go deal with bandits or marauding kind of hordes or whatever.
But he would be in charge of that.
He'd be in charge of that, right? And then outside of that, you would have local landowners who might have some of their own, who were kind of in charge of their own little areas. Basically, the rich people of of that age.
And we're talking, I don't know, this would be a question I had too, in reading this book called Bring Me the Head of Joaquin Murrieta. Are we talking in the European sense? Are we talking tremendously wealthy family? Because really,
no,
that is what we're talking in California. Okay, yeah.
So now tremendously wealthy is a relative term.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And it's like, well, yeah, relative to a farmer, to just a guy who was just a tenant farmer. Yes, they were tremendously wealthy. These tremendously wealthy landowners. Some of them being kind of descendant of like Roman patrician families who had settled these areas. Some of them being basically peoples who were from those areas that kind of were Romanized, that kind of became Romanized a little bit. So they'd have been a little bit more educated, a little more well established. But they weren't like absurdly wealthy like sometimes we think of today, right? It's like but they were by the standards of their era, yeah. And so kind of what happens is when the Roman system falls apart, these local landowners become kind of the de facto governors of their own land. They're forced to kind of modify what they do, because they can't outsource kind of like they can't go, if there's a problem, they can't write to the governor and say like, you got to come deal with the problem. So, well, we got to deal with this ourselves now. And we can't afford to have a legion. We can't afford even 100 to field and equip 100 people.
Yeah, you're certainly seeing that in California, Alta California.
Yeah, so they developed this system, the system that was known as feudalism.
What is the etymology of that?
I am not 100% sure. I'm going to look that up.
Fine, that's a random question. I'm just wondering.
I that's a good question for Google, right? Feudalism etymology. There we go. Derived from the medieval Latin feudalis, related to feudum, meaning fief or land in exchange for service. Okay. with roots possibly in a Germanic term for movable property. That is what the Copilot AI search told us, and I'm going to assume that that's probably correct for something like this. But
now, one question I have too is: did citizens have the option to opt out of this system? Was there a way to be a sovereign citizen of sorts, or were they kind of de facto forced into this?
Yes and no. There were people who basically opted out, and those were people who were like the migratory peoples, who did not fit into the kind of the normal systems. People like the Roma, the gypsies sometimes called it. I don't know if technically if gypsy is supposed to be a bad word or not anymore.
I never know.
But the Roma and other groups like them, there were groups like that have existed for a long time that kind of didn't fit into these normal systems, so they basically wandered from place to place. The Jews operated a little bit like that too in Europe, when they kind of were scattered and ended up being in Europe, where they didn't really fit into the formal systems.
Another term where it's like, we don't mean that to be a Jewish people. I don't know, but like, no, I don't know what's derogatory anymore. But yes, that's another great. And California.
Sometimes they changed.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Do you think California being non-migratory or transitory tribes had an effect on the tribes being? They were very vulnerable. I think the compulsion, the level of compulsion that was wrought upon them is a little exaggerated at times. But do you think they're being kind of stationary left them vulnerable to kind of having to acquiesce to the mission systems and the rancho systems?
Yes.
Was that the case with Europeans, or did they have the option to leave?
I think people. I mean. Okay, so let's break this down a little bit, right? It's like, in one sense, well, your alternatives of leaving society is probably be like, what are you going to be, an outlaw and a bandit? Join a bandit.
Kind of what we're seeing here,
yeah. So like that's kind of the alternative to being like, if you're like, this has been the case forever, right? If you're going to live in society, if you're going to live in the civilization, you have to kind of acquiesce to the structures of that civilization, and there really isn't a way to opt out of that in many cases, because it's like, again, because the alternative is death. I essentially buy into social contract theory, but I'm a Hobbist, so I think Hobbes is the only social contract theorist worth anything, because he's the only one who correctly.
Might as well explicate that a touch so that everybody's on the same
I know.
page.
So Thomas Hobbes is in really the first and I think the first political philosopher to kind of propose the idea of social contract theory, that power is in some ways is kind of an illusion that's because it's agreed that we agree. We kind of, there's a social contract that basically ties us to our society, and we have to kind of enter into that social contract, and it's not like a conscious thing, it's like an unconscious thing,
implicit.
because it's implicit thing, because the alternative is the state of nature, and the state of nature is a state of absolute chaos and death.
It's not good. The state of nature is not good.
Yeah, and Hobbes describes the state of nature as, life is nasty, brutish, and short.
Yeah,
I would agree. The war of all against all, and it's like, and if you want to picture what that kind of looks like in fiction or whatever, like things like Mad Max and other, that's kind of a lot of these dystopian, dystopian universes like kind of depict what the Hobbesian state of nature kind of looks like, where it's just tribes constantly at war with each other. And there's been times in history when that's basically been the case.
So does this social contract? I'm guessing this social contract theory requires those who are in power to provide protection and oversight for the well-being of
Essentially, there's yes, you enter into kind of a social contract in this, but in Hobbes's mind, you create what he calls the Leviathan. That's the title of his book too, is Leviathan, which is again, it's one of the best books of modern political philosophy. I think is really important, and it's kind of under people in America, especially, tend to know about like John Locke and such, but I'm sorry, Locke is an idiot compared to Hobbes.
You heard it here.
I know, you heard it here first. I'm sorry. It's just Locke is very much an idealist, and he kind of he does not reason out his positions as well as Hobbes does, and that's plain to see. Now, yeah, I can get into more of my theories on Thomas Hobbes at some point, but we'll skip over that for now. But yeah, so you enter into society, like there is a kind of compulsory element to that. And so, yeah, and the reality is like, look, if the local lord, if the local kind of landowner says, well, I'm the lord of this domain now, and these 20 guys here are my enforcers, it's like, well, you can either accept that and kind of pledge your fealty, and kind of be a part of the system, or you can revolt and potentially die, or and it's just the kind of the so feudalism kind of develops as a way to fill the power vacuum that Rome left. And in many cases, and so in California, you see the same kind of thing happen because you don't have a formal power structure. You have the mission system, but the mission systems weren't ever set up to be governments.
No.
They're missions. They were
mission,
that,
right.
and they
I think we lose sight of that. We do think that they are more than they were. It's like, no, that was a mission. It was just
that was for monks to go live and help convert people to Christianity.
That's just and were there good things and bad things that happened there? Yes, like any other institution, but like,
and it's like that was the especially after you had the kind of miracle at the Virgin of Guadalupe. There was a really strong push within the Spanish colony to spread Christianity throughout their territory. Prior to that, they really hadn't done a lot. They had priests there, but the priests were there mostly to minister to the Spaniards who had settled there.
Yes,
not really. They didn't have really a lot of interaction with the natives. And then you had the miracle. I'm Orthodox, and I still believe it was a miracle. So, the Virgin of Guadalupe. For this, if you don't know what that it was, I'll briefly explain. So basically, there's a native guy who has a vision of a woman who is the Virgin Mary, and she tells him to gather a bunch of flowers.
His name? I feel bad.
I don't remember either. I think he becomes a saint later. I'm not entirely sure though in the Catholic Church anymore. I don't really remember though, because I believe he does convert. And but yeah, she says to basically go gather a bunch of flowers and like an apron or something. And I don't know because I'm not familiar with the exact.
No, that's correct. Story, a bunch of roses.
Yeah. And then she said they go show that to the priest. So the native guy does. He gathers a bunch of these roses, puts them in his apron. He goes to show the priest, and as he unfurls the apron or a cloak or something, the flowers scatter, but left there on the cloth is an image of the Virgin Mary, and it's like very detailed and obvious to if you're familiar at all with Christian iconography and symbolism. It's like, yes, this you would recognize it. The priest immediately recognized that. Oh, this is
and if you've been to anywhere really in Mexico and the whole of Mexico, you see lots of depictions of the Lady of Guadalupe icon.
Yeah, it's a very and the actual thing still exists. Like it's still, you can go see it.
And that event, you're right. It really that drove the expansion of the mission system.
And the priests took that as a sign that they were to start the spread of Christianity in the New World, and they did.
And when you're talking about if you're talking about the expansion of the Spanish Empire, you are hand in hand talking about the expansion of the Catholic Church. They are indivorceable.
They're very closely aligned at this point, especially after the kind of rise of Protestantism. The Catholic monarchies become very, especially Spain and Portugal, become very closely entrenched with Rome, and because in many cases they kind of, France was always kind of a fence, has always been a fence sitter. It was always kind of a fence sitter in this, and Germany was also kind of the Germans were too busy fighting amongst themselves. They were, I mean, the Holy Roman Empire, the whole Holy Roman Empire was torn apart by squabbles between Protestants and Catholics. So it was not in this time period. It was never kind of a big factor, and especially when England becomes Protestant, it's like this is an existential. This is like it really did kind of seem to peoples at the time that this is a war of,
worlds
of and so the Spanish and Portuguese royal families and some other Catholic monarchies become very closely meshed with Rome and with the papacy, for better and for worse. I mean, it's part of history. It's the way it is. This is
but you're right. These missions are set up basically as places for monks to live, to work. They have massive, by today, I mean, very, very large, many hundreds, sometimes thousands of acres, orchards and farms and stuff that are often worked by the local natives who they convert.
Yeah, because these monasteries and such kind of the missions, they essentially and that's what same thing happened in Europe is monastic communities operated under kind of a feudal system where they would have lands that were that were granted to them to support the monastery, and serfs to work on the lands who were rather than owing fealty to a lord, they owed fealty to the church.
So this isn't particularly unique. This setup.
No, it's not, and it's kind of what tends to happen when you have these large power vacuums. Something has to fill that. That's kind of that's part of human nature. That's part of the nature of how societies work. Chaos is very much as the enemy of civilization. And so there's
something to be said for proximity as well, because they are so far away from not only Spain, not only the Vatican, but then even when Mexico wins its independence, they are way far away from Mexico City.
Yeah, if they want to get word from whoever the president of Mexico is on some policy issue, it's going to take weeks, if not months.
And the president of Mexico doesn't care. Yeah, it's just a backwater. So they have no idea about what's there.
What happens then is that so this is the same thing that happened in Europe in the Dark Ages. Essentially, is power is reconsolidated locally and into these kind of essentially feudal systems, and these ranchos basically became, the family head was basically the feudal lord, and the people who worked on the lands, their tenants and such, was their serfs, and it's like this, and this is kind of what just inevitably happened, partially out of kind of familiarity. This would have been, to somebody who was coming over, like familiar with how Spain operated. Still, Spain was still kind of operated in a system like this at this time. So it's like it was the natural thing to do.
Yeah, we are talking the 1600s on, really the late 1500s on. It's like the first founding in California of a mission is in San Diego, which is the late 1700s, and it builds up from Mexico from there. And it's just it starts very early. It's much older than I think most Americans understand. So the time period that would have kind of been familiar, the contemporary time period, what would have been happening in Spain is very similar to what was happening in California. It was very hierarchical, very medieval.
And in some way, what other thing that happens on kind of borderland areas, especially when they're so far away too, is that the developments that are happening in the rest of the world are delayed getting there. So,
yes, they're thousands of miles away.
Yeah. And this is even true within kind of kingdoms in Europe, right? It's like you have maybe you start having these new political ideas in the capital cities, But out in the country, things are working the same way that they've been working for hundreds of years, and it takes a lot longer to kind of for those ideas to spread out. And if you're not only out in the country, but you're out in the fringe borderlands, they're essentially operating in a kind of an intellectual and technological paradigm that's like 100 years behind what even their native countries were.
And a social paradigm, a political paradigm. Like they don't know any different. These ranchers in California, they are vassal lords, essentially. Everything that's inland or in between the mission systems is what's really feudal, where it's like, oh, there is no evangelical religious aspect to it. It is just, no, these natives and these Mexican or Spanish citizens work for me. I am it doesn't mean it's abusive inherently, but there is a clear stratification, and these guys own thousands of acres. And if you've ever been to Rancho Cucamonga, Rancho San Miguel, Rancho San Margarita, anywhere, if you've been in Southern California, the Bay Area, sadly, dude, I'm from the Central Valley, right? And even in the 1840s and 50s, they were all just like, no, thanks. Like they didn't go there, which is kind of depressing, but still thousands and thousands of acres. And it is they had large adobe haciendas, basically, which is even not really dissimilar from a lot of the houses that you see in California today, like big whitewashed adobes with red brick roofs, but essentially like you've described, castles, like one centralized structure that could hold everybody in case of some kind of trouble. There's not a lot of hostile tribes. Really, the big worry is banditry, which that's another thing that seems very common in the Middle Ages.
Yes, because again, because you don't have strong centralized systems of government and centers of justice, you get an increase in the amount of people who can take advantage. There are people who are going to take advantage of that. And it's like, well, you can go make and banditry exists within the Roman Empire, plenty. Like banditry and kind of like stuff like this has been around since the dawn of time.
It exists in the in-between, right? And the lands in between civilizations or towns.
And it's and it's a combination, and it happens from a combination of factors, right? It's you get people who don't fit in with society, or who are kind of basically exiled from society for various reasons, oftentimes for wrongdoing. Sometimes you get a guy who is a little bit violent in the community, and the community's response is, well, you have to leave. And so what is that guy gonna do? Well, I guess I'm a bandit now. I mean, that's kind of you were kicked out of your town for being too unruly. There weren't a lot of options for you because chances are another town was not going to take you in without knowing who you are and where you came from.
Can you maybe kind of demystify this notion of the gallant highwayman who kind of benignly took people's goods?
Yeah, the gentleman thief, is a very kind of like romantic notion that is not really. You can find, like, in history, like, and that's one of the reasons they're popular, is because the very few times those things happen in history, people write about it because it's interesting.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, same with like things like Robin Hood, right? Robin Hood is a great kind of story, because it's like, because people who live in the town, in the village or whatever, there is this kind of natural inclination to kind of fantasize about what the people who live on the outskirts are like. And this happens no matter like what you are. And so like this is just a common thing for humanity. We do the same thing today, by the way. It is how many TV shows do you have about like the intelligent, sophisticated criminals who
sure. And I think there's an element,
like terrible, but they have some honor to them or whatever, so it justifies them.
Because I think that enables the audience to see it as a sticking it to the man situation.
Yeah,
like this guy may have his bad elements. It's, hey, I think we have a fair amount of pro wrestling fans here. It is the Stone Cold Steve Austin playbook, where it's like, actually, yes, this guy is doing everything wrong, but he's telling the boss to take a hike, or he's telling the boss, he's telling off the man, he's standing up for the rest of us. And like, there is an element of this, Robin Hood. We're going to talk about Zorro, how Joaquin Murrieta was the prototype for Zorro, with the same worldview, the same belief of like, oh, this guy is stealing from the rich to enrich himself a little bit, but really he's doing it for the little guy. And this notion is just so wildly misguided. These guys were
they were not
violent
for the most part. They were not doing it for the little guy, and they we're doing some pretty bad things to bad things to innocent people, bad things to women. Let's just put it that way. This almost, sexual violence goes hand in hand with this kind of life. That's the way it is.
And just like just stealing everything. Like, imagine like someone just drains all your bank accounts and you have no access to anything, and you're left completely destitute. It is a terrible thing to do to someone.
Yeah. But it's very common for people who are within kind of the confines and the shackles of society to kind of fantasize about the people who live on the fringes. And they like, and there's a certain amount of like, almost admiration for those people. But the reality is so often that's not what the reality is. The reality is these people, these a lot of these guys, they're bad guys. There's no honor among thieves.
Nope.
Like, that's a very, one of the reasons you had to be such a ruthless person if you were a leader of bandits is because there's 10 guys who will kill you in your sleep.
That is, it's so funny
to take your place on the minute you're not like, they think you show some weakness. Like, that's the reality.
And so I don't mean that kind of horrific behavior is funny. I'm saying the parallels with what you're saying, and just to be clear, we've established, more vaguely familiar with the story of Joaquin Murrieta, but you haven't really heard the story in depth, right?
No, but this is a story that's been
so crazy.
This has been repeated in history for thousands of years. Like,
everything you just said is the story. It is so crazy,
and it's like and so the thing is like, the reign of tyrants is brief. And that implies very much to people like bandit chiefs or bandit lord, is their reign is brief, because if you are a tyrant, there's going to be 10 people waiting in the wing for the minute you slip up to put a knife in your back,
and 10 people chasing you.
Yep,
like 10 people that 10 of your friends, and then 10 of your enemies are going to be chasing you.
And it's a very kind of this is why that people tend to look, Americans, one of our defining cultural traits is we have a very anti-authoritarian bent in our culture. The English do too. So it's kind of, we kind of inherit some of that, but we take it even further than England does.
By necessity, by
several degrees, we take it more seriously. Sure. I mean, the English already have kind of an anti-imperial, anti-authoritarian bent.
Well, that's kind of that's how California had this feudalistic system, because they didn't rebel against much, and they were so disengaged from Mexico. They didn't really have a lot to even do with the Mexican Revolution. So they were kind of just upholding this system of lords and lands that I don't know if it existed in many places by the 1850s.
No, and it was, but again, because you're on the fringes, you're hundreds of years behind where the development of society has, like in your motherland, is. So they that's just
interestingly
kind of the way it works, right? It's like there's
they actually had lancers still. Like, you can see this is a vaquero, right? quick little side note, the cowboy that we know in American culture really kind of started in a lot of ways in California, in Alta California. These guys were the best horsemen in the world, which really plays into the Joaquin Murrieta situation. A lot of the ways that he's able to get away is like sliding to the side of his horse or doing some kind of thing that you would see a trick rider today do. But that was common for most Californios. And you can see this guy, he has the early iterations of a cowboy hat and chaps and boots and a saddle and the bridle and so on and so forth. So it was a very horse-centric culture, right? And I kind of wanted to ask, what was it common? A lot of Alta California was, it wasn't a caste system, but it was very stratified by your job. So you had a specialization, especially there would be farmers and then there would be vaqueros, and the farmers would work the land and the vaqueros would work these thousands of acres of ranchos, right? Were there specialized were there specialized workers in medieval society that served? Did like a lord have a carpenter, and did he have a guy for farming?
Yes. Okay. And in Europe you get the development of kind of the guild system, which is kind of that's how Europe kind of economically develops post Rome. Is in order to kind of like, one of the things that they're at the real risk of in without Rome is, especially as literacy kind of plummets, there's not as much access to education, is they lose some technology and they lose kind of like the ability to maintain some of the things they had. And so to kind of counteract that, you get the development of like a guild system where which kind of works in tandem with the feudal hierarchy, and where you have basically you have craftsman guilds which kind of exist basically to kind of pass on the knowledge of their craft, and sometimes hoard the knowledge of their craft too, so other people who are not part of the guild don't get it. Guilds are a capitalists tend to hate them, hate the idea of guilds and think it's like,
they're kind of like a union, huh?
In some ways, yeah. But it's a little bit different, and so you get basically, and this is the reality for most of history, is if you were a craftsman, your children are going to take over your craftsman shop after you,
right?
And if you don't have children, then you have to like either adopt people, or maybe you only have daughters, like you got to marry them to people to become apprentices. Yes. And that's good. It was very common, right? So it's like, well, especially, and maybe like the blacksmith had 5 sons and he doesn't need 5 sons, like he only needs like 2 of them to take over the next shop. Well, the carpenter doesn't have any sons and he's got 3 daughters. So I'm going to have my sons go marry your daughters, and you're going to go learn carpentry instead. And so that was kind of how that worked. But yeah, you would take over crafts people were taught, from very young ages, they started learning their trade. If you were gonna be a person in a craft, that's like blacksmithing, carpentry, silversmithing, pottery, weaving, a lot of people like had a lot more general knowledge too of like, okay, so there would be things like certain, like making clothes and making and mending garments, and a little bit of carpentry kind of skills was probably stuff everybody knew, because you would just have to maintain your own spaces yourself, your own stuff. But to get like the next level of that, if you wanted anything more complicated, you had to go learn the trade from a master. And so you had what ends up kind of developing in places in Europe is this guild system where you get these that kind of are centered around the large towns and cities.
Real quick, I think you're bumping your mic or something. So
am I?
Something like that. Whatever that is. I don't want to detract from your.
All right, I'll. Is it good now?
Knowledge here. Carry on. Sorry, I just wanted to bring that
up. So there was you would have people you would train under your master, and then kind of once you got to a certain level, you would be kind of approved by the guild. There was usually some kind of certification or testing process where they would you would go in front of a panel of masters and have
this
to
is where we get the
you
whole Freemason thing from.
Yeah. It's because it's the Masons Guild. It's the Masons Guild, right? I mean, it's like, and as some of these guilds become more powerful, some of them get kind of corrupt and almost mafia-esque, because that's just kind of kind of how people work.
We can say the same about some of the missions, even. I'm down to be charitable. I'm not trying to take a side. Yeah,
it's kind of just the way things happen. So you would go, once you kind of reach a certain level, you would go a proficiency. You would go kind of prove yourself, and then you get your journeyman license. And if you were a journeyman, it meant that you were authorized by the guild to travel and also and do the work of the guild in other places. And directly, you didn't have to be under a master. And then after journeyman, once you got some more experience, you could then again be kind of tested to be a master. And as a master, then you had certain other kind of rights that you could open up your own shop. You could have your own apprentices. And so this is kind of the system that developed in Europe.
Do you think it lends itself to this element of banditry in that, okay, if you don't fit into those systems, into those castes for whatever reason, does that mean okay, well, this person has nowhere else to go?
I think that's been the case for most of human history. Is that this is one of the conundrums of society. This is one of the great kind of problems of political philosophy for people have been thinking about for since political philosophy has been a thing. Is you look at the human population, and you've got a huge diversity of people with different talents and different affinities, different kind of personalities. And there's this kind of overarching, well, how do you construct a society that encompasses everybody?
Yes.
And the short answer is that you can't actually. This is actually one of the kind of great, in some ways, this is kind of the tragedy of political philosophy too, because it's by its kind of very nature, society has to be exclusionary. Because there has to be this is the society, and outside, these are the lines that exist, and if you are outside of that, you cannot be a part of it.
Well, there's no society if everything if there's nothing to delineate it.
And that's the thing, right? This is kind of this creates a lot of conflict in some ways, because there's debate. Well, where should those lines be? And what do you do with people who cross the lines? What do you do with them? Right? I mean, and the answer isn't always clear what you do with them, because sometimes if you just kick them out of society, well, they could just go be the bandits on the bandits and highwaymen. If you just unalive them, then you run the risk of you being kind of a tyrant, and just tyrannical.
And that's something Rome really struggled with, right? How do we incorporate these peoples that we're expanding into? How are we going to? That's something. Okay, so maybe I could pose this question to you, Jeopardy style, with the answer first, but or I don't know. I think that's Jeopardy style. Either way, California was essentially the expansion of the Spanish Empire into these new lands, right? But in doing that, you're expanding into the lands of the Chumash people, of the Yokut people, of the Miwok people. I'm leaving many, many out here, right? But it leaves them with the question of, this isn't necessarily, I understand I'm going to get some pushback on this, and that's justifiable, but I'm just saying, in and of its nature, it's not necessarily a martial takeover. It's not violent overtakings of these tribes, but it is taking their territory. It is subjugating them to a new system. How did so the first part being is how unique is that in history, and B, what did other empires do when confronted with that problem?
It depends on a couple things. It depends on how much military force you have to basically force your will upon other people. I mean, let's be clear. When Caesar conquered Gaul, he unalived a third of the Gallic population.
Right. That's kind of my point.
People. I mean, it's like
this California wasn't that.
No. The other way you can kind of do it in the slow way is, and I think this is probably more along the lines of what happened here, is you basically entice people to come be a part of your system. You offer them something that they're going to want. You can kind of present so we're going to have these, we can teach you how to build these kind of buildings. We can teach you how to do the things that we know how to do, but if you're, we'll trade with you, we'll give you stuff that is of value to you. But the trade-off of that is, if you're going to do that, you have to come and acquiesce to these rules.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of the way I think that these lands were subjugated is that they just came and kind of like, this is what we're doing. And if you want to be a part of that, there's stuff you're going to have to do to be a part of that, but there's also stuff you get. It means you're going to also get our protection. You're going to get our protection in the case of like you're part of our fief now, which means like we're going to we're going to have soldiers who will patrol these areas. Oftentimes the I don't know if this was particularly the case in California, but when just in general, when the expansion into the New World came, a lot of times you'd go in and you'd ally with tribes who were kind of weaker than who were kind of getting bullied by the bigger tribes, and say, well, hey, if you just come and join us, we won't, we'll let you be a part of our thing. And we'll protect you against your enemies.
Which is effectively like Brock Lesnar going up to a kid on the schoolyard who's getting picked on and be like, do you want me to get your back? And you're going to be like, of course.
Yeah. And it might mean that you have to carry his bags, right?
Yeah. It's like, hey, give me the bag, Brock. No problem. Happy to do it. Thank you.
But it's like, what are you going to do? Right. It's this kind of so that's the kind of the slow way of expansion. That kind of tends to go along with military. Like a lot of times it's like the idea of kind of just people coming and conquering territories is kind of the reality is that kind of cultural assimilation usually doesn't take place immediately. It takes place over the next several generations.
Yeah.
And it's through this system of like, okay, this basically you can entice people to kind of be a part of the system. The Rome offered citizenship to people who served in the legions.
Like you were saying, the natural order is chaos. Like being part of nature outside of a system is horrible.
It's horrible. And
freedom,
and it's like, freedom's not all it's all cracked up to be. If freedom in many cases is choosing what you serve. And in fact, that's all freedom actually can be. There is no true freedom outside of that. Everybody has to serve somebody. Maybe the devil, maybe the Lord. You all got to serve someone.
It's a Bob Dylan quote. You got to serve somebody.
No, Willie Nelson sang that song too.
You got to serve somebody. So this isn't a particularly. I love Willie, guys. That's a Waylon tribute right there. However, you're saying this wasn't a particularly unique situation in history. I have one caveat to that. How unique in history is this undeniable, horrible element to it, however unintentional it may be, of the spread of these plagues of smallpox and cholera, particularly smallpox, but cholera as well.
Yeah, and that's
it doesn't have to be those two, but Black Plague, whatever. Was that common with the expansion of empires?
I don't know if I want to answer that without doing that's a
it's honest question. I was thinking about that.
I don't know if I can answer that without doing.
Totally fair. I just kind of thought that up as we were talking. Yeah.
But it's definitely true that one of the things that kind of allows for the spread of plagues is when societies are more open and trading and interacting with each other. I mean, bubonic plague came to Europe partially as a result of the Mongol conquests opening up the Silk Road. And because the Silk Road was open, you had the spread of the plague rats that eventually unintentionally, but it spread it from the east into Europe.
Sure.
And so it's kind of it's an unintentional side effect, I think, of these kind of things.
Unfortunately, yeah, and it's horrific. I will be the first
is.
one to tell you how horrible to really put yourself in that situation. Imagine walking up on a village that's been stricken with smallpox. It's really hard to imagine. It's so horrific.
You could have entire villages just be gone. And
it's
and
apocalyptic.
And the thing is like, I mean, smallpox has something like I don't know what the mortality. I guess like a 70% mortality rate.
Yeah. It's way up.
It's way high. It's very high, and it's like it becomes it jumps up to 90% if it develops like into there's like two different strains of it, kind of like, and like the lower strain can turn into the worst one. If it's like it becomes the worst one, it's like a 95% mortality rate or something. It's
so then imagine you have no modern medicine or hospitals. Yeah. It's just like
and it spreads from contact with bodily fluids. So it's like, it's not like you can,
and you don't know how it spreads at the time. So it's just,
and people, no, I will say that people did know, they did know the diseases spread through contact, right? That was known because it was something that just about every society, you noticed at a certain point is like, so-and-so got sick. And then like 3 other people who they were around also got sick. I wonder what causes, it must be you're not supposed to be around sick people.
Sure. You'd see natives move entire villages, just leave the sick people and move an entire village.
And they understood that they understood things like you had to like burning the dead because who were plagued, because it's like they didn't necessarily know they didn't know it was the germs or the fleas or whatever it was that was causing it. But they knew some. And they knew that if you're going to treat people who have these kind of illnesses, you have to be very careful not to get it on you, which was not easy. And then smallpox could just spread so quickly. And this is the thing you got to understand: the societies of this size, if you lose 70% of your population, the rest of them is going to starve to death too. Right, because it's like, what are you going to do, right? I mean, if you don't,
it's exponentially crazier than 2020. It's so wild.
Yes, and it's like, and this is kind of,
I don't think I used exponentially wrong there, but sorry, my bad. Whatever, it's much worse.
Yeah, and this is Mark Kavitsky has a good point here. Plagues have been around for millennia. They've been around. Plagues have been around since the beginning of history, right? And before, very likely.
Fair.
They it seems to just kind of be a fact of the world. Exactly why is kind of, well, I mean, there is no, in one sense, there's no good scientific reason for why these things have to exist. You can get into spiritual reasons for why they exist, and that's really all, the only explanations you're going to get. Why is it that these things, that viruses exist, that germs kind of exist, that there are things that exist basically to prey on, on other things. And
well, is it unique? Is it a common pattern to see this level of spread of a disease, and then, significant depopulation, and then a flood of immigrants into it?
Yes,
such is the case. And because to be clear, California was a state before the gold rush, so it's I don't know if but California had been no, I don't know if it was a state, but it had been taken in the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo in 1848, so it was an American territory by the time the gold was discovered. So you are seeing already an influx of people, and then a massive influx, obviously, with the gold rush. So is that a common pattern where it's like depopulation, influx?
So what happens is, right, is that this is what happened like with the bubonic plague in Europe, right? Is the bubonic plague comes in and just ravages areas of Europe. Okay, well, you have a lot of these villages where, again, half of the people died, and it's like, well, where are they going to go? There's not enough of them left to maintain the village anymore.
Like, who's going to be the blacksmith?
I know. So like, exactly. Like if the blacksmith and the carpenter died, we don't have anyone who knows how to do those things anymore. Nope. So what are you going to do? Well, you're going to move into areas that didn't get affected, which happened. There were always areas that just for whatever reason, by luck or by providence or by some kind of twist.
Could be a scientific reason, but we don't know. Like
that either didn't get hit or didn't get hit very bad. Sometimes sometimes the leaders of those areas reacted quickly enough to stop the spread. Right, that was it's like, especially when they saw it kind of coming in other places and heard about it, they said, okay, well, if these things appear, we need to immediately take action, quarantine people. Places with strong monastic communities tended to actually do okay in the bubonic plague because the monastic communities took care of people, and bubonic plague is actually survivable.
Yes, it's not 100%.
It's actually not as lethal. It's if you are treated, even without with the modern medicines, if you're just kind of treated.
And there are simple things too, like fresh air and clean bandages and stuff like that. That was like
exactly because like a lot of the way you died was from things that it was comorbidity things, right? So it's like if you had somebody who was just like gonna keep your fever down and wash and like wash you and clean off the pustules and like wrap you in new bandages every so often, which like the only people kind of willing to do those were monks. So places with strong monastic communities survived with less damage. So what ended up happening is that the areas that kind of didn't get hit as much, all of a sudden, doubled, tripled their population because people from outside and communities that had gotten ravaged moved in. And so this, what happens in Europe is that even though the population goes down dramatically in Europe, the population density of cities increases dramatically. And so it's like, and so you get a transition at that. That's one of the reasons that kind of you have to start getting the transition from feudalism, which feudalism is a very effective system of controlling large areas that are sparsely populated because it's very decentralized. And this whole idea
of California at this time. Yeah.
The whole idea of, land for service, right. And tying people to the land is a very effective way to kind of control large territories, but it works kind of when populations get too big in certain areas. You get the competing power structures develop, which kind of will ultimately start to kind of overwhelm the feudal system.
Look at our Civil War.
Yeah, and this is like where you get after the Black Plague is when you get really the things like trade guilds become much more powerful because they get much larger and they then start to kind of basically have their own internal government and banking structures that they can use for their members, and they essentially create a competing hierarchy with the formal hierarchy. Justinian dealt with a crazy plague, says Steelwise. I do not know the story of that. I will have to look that one up.
Okay, I thought I'd highlight that for you.
I'm not familiar with what exactly you're talking about, but Justinian was I'm assuming you're talking about Emperor Justinian, who was the one of the greatest Byzantine emperors, the Eastern Roman Emperor all time. He is in many ways the last great emperor that the Eastern Roman Empire has. He built the Hagia Sophia. He actually successfully reconquered Rome briefly. Took it back from the barbarian kingdoms briefly anyway. He reconquered a lot of the other territories that Rome had lost. He had a great he was very blessed that he had two kind of really remarkable people in his corner, you had his wife, Theodosia, right? Who is a remarkable person, because she was loved by people, but hated by the elites. But yeah, and she was kind of one of his advisors and was
kind of a
very
Princess
clever.
Di.
Yeah, she was a former, lady of the night, essentially. And
okay, I don't want to throw that on Lady Di, but
yeah, but so she had his wife, and she actually successfully talked him out of there was a riot in the capital at one point, a really bad riot, and it looked like the rioters were going to basically win and sack the city and sack the palace, and which meant that Justinian and Theodosia were going to be on the chopping block,
literally
at that point, yeah. And so they had an option to flee the city and be exiled, and Theodosia tells him, "I would rather die in imperial purple than be clad in the brown, garb of a commoner."
Based. I'll say that's based.
So at that point, it's like, well, no, guess I have to stay and fight.
I think I like her. Okay.
Yeah, and yeah, she's interesting.
It's kind of like Kim Kardashian comment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but the second person he had kind of working for him was his great general Belisarius. Belisarius is another contender for greatest general in history. Just brilliant, brilliant leader. He's the person who wins against the rioters, who basically takes command of the guard and stops quells the riot, which kind of earns him his position as basically the king's right-hand military guy.
Man, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And he is the guy who leads the reconquests of these kind of territories that Rome had lost, and successfully does that. I think he beats the Persians several times. He beats the kind of barbarian kingdom several times. He retakes Rome. Great general.
There's an interesting kind of maybe hypothetical or analogy to be drawn from that. Do you think, like, in the time of the Romans, like, let's say, okay, there was gold found in Persia, would you see a mass influx? Okay, Rome just retook Persia, and then they found a massive gold field. Would you see an influx of Roman citizens into Persia?
Yes.
Yeah, you would, right? It's a common thing.
That's pretty common, right? I mean, if there's wealth to be had, there's going to be people who are going to go take
walk there. Yeah.
And
almost none of them will get wealthy. Almost none of them will ever even find gold.
Yeah, in many cases they don't, right? It's
the people who do get wealthy are the people who supply them with shovels.
Well, it's the people who are already wealthy who get more wealthy.
Yeah, sure.
That's what happens typically. Things like gold and silver tended to be very tightly monopolized by the state, because obviously this is like it's currency, so they had to be very. They were very. I mean, even in the U.S., that was the case, right? Unlike you had to really in some ways, it's like, well, if it's the gold belongs to the government, and at least the governments generally would like to say that, and I don't know. It's
I think we've done a good job. Kind of,
it gets complicated.
We've drawn the parallels that I think are just undeniable. I think what makes the story of Joaquin Murrieta like so fascinating, because it is something that could be transplanted right back to the medieval ages. Okay, we're going to get to the chats. One thing real quick, one more question, and then Sam and I are going to do our book recommendations. We have some, I think you guys know what mine's going to be, but Sam has one as well. And one final thing I wanted to ask was, how common is this, if how common is this notion or this implementation of ranging companies? A lot of people think the word ranger, it's understandable, but a lot of people think the word ranger just comes out of nowhere. It's just like, it sounds cool. It's like, no, it's a literal description. It's someone who ranges, like their initial, their initial charge in medieval times. And I'm sure it's come about before then, but it's to range a particular area and enforce law and order more or less within that area.
Yes, you'd have there was kind of in this is the truth of in most of history up until the modern era. There is no distinction between policing and military forces.
Yeah, no, not with the Rangers. Yeah.
And so
in the Old West, yes,
yeah, thing. and that's true of most of history. Is the people who are enforcing justice are the same people who are soldiers in times of war, and you. So you don't kind of you don't have like the one of the things that kind of comes out of the modern world is the separation of policing and military force. I'm not convinced that it's a
we might be seeing the two merge again. We might be seeing them kind of.
I think you're actually inevitably going to see the two merge again, because you look at what the police are now, and it's, I'm sorry, but it's a joke in many areas, and
we have a big influx of military gear coming in from a 20-year war, so I wouldn't be terribly surprised.
And that's kind of
they're a common thing. This notion of a noble or a wealthy person establishing a ranging company of knights or.
Well, it's a power vacuum. Power vacuums demand to be filled, and so if you do not have formal systems of justice, you're going to get informal forms of justice.
Vigilante gangs.
Gangs.
And that's so funny you say that. That's what we had. That's why the California Rangers were established. That's all California was.
And you're going to see that cycle repeat again, quite honestly. I think it's already happened in many places. In some ways, that's what gangs are, right? And I mean that, and it's like, and I'm not saying that to justify the activities of gang members at all.
No,
I'm saying that if you do not have formal power structures, you're going to get informal power structures that will rise to fill the void, because those vacuums demand to be filled, And so if you have people who for whatever reason are disillusioned or disenfranchised by the formal power structures, they're going to be drawn into the informal power structures. And it's like, this is kind of, it's an inevitability. And it's kind of, in many cases, it's the enemy of civilization, because it's like, you cannot, like I was talking about,
nature, nature will fill the vacuum.
Yeah.
There will always be a vacuum, and it will be filled.
You cannot have, competing power structures, because competing power structure, like within the same system, and this is actually, I think, in some ways a mistake of the kind of American idea that you're going to have that ambition will check ambition, and that you're going to have, if you have essentially competing branches of government, they're going to the self-interests of these competing branches will balance each other out.
Yeah.
And I think it's wrong. I think that's actually not what happens. And what it does is it creates it doesn't work. And I don't think. And I think you can pretty clearly see that hasn't worked. And you see, and again, in the absence of formal power structures, you're going to have informal power structures. Informal power structures are everybody likes to think of, oh, we're going to get like the justice loving vigilante who's just going to, be the. There's
basically no such thing. If you're going to be a vigilante, you can't be justice loving.
No, and what you're going to get, what you're going to get more likely is tribalism and gangs, because it's like, well, I've got to protect mine and my own, and if the formal systems won't do that, then it's going to fall to me. I'm putting in air quotes because it's not actually me, but
well, what you're describing is why I wanted to feature this book. That is Joaquin Murrieta in many ways. He felt, I mean, he didn't come out of nowhere. He was, the origin story is a little iffy, but most people say that he was very harshly treated by Mexican and American authorities. Like some of them say that they unalived his family, unalived his wife or his children. There's a multitude of origin stories, but there's enough smoke there to be some fire of truth, right? And it is a case of having no faith in the systems, being only aggrieved, by the system, only mistreated by the system. And yeah, that when there is no power structure in California in the 1840s and 50s, or even that power structure is always in flux. It's like, well, now it's Spain, now it's Mexico, now it's America. It just creates this huge vacuum of power. And if that isn't filled by the Rangers, and then that's going to be filled by bandits. And to your earlier point, a lot of times those are the same people. So on that cheery little note, I wanted to feature, I'm going to feature this book real quickly. I'll tell you guys where to get it or what the title is. Let me remove this off. I'm going to add this right here. This is called Bring Me the Head of Joaquin Murrieta. It is by John Bossenecker. It's relatively recently released in the last 3 or 4 years. It is, let me share this real quick. Can't recommend it highly enough. This is the Amazon link. If you're a fan of history at all, I think any era in history, Sam, I think you would enjoy this book because it's just so medieval in nature. It really reads like something from the Middle Ages. It doesn't, they'll start talking about revolvers and you expect them to have swords and shields or cutlasses or something. So Joaquin Murrieta is an incredibly complex character. The amount of violence that took place and the amount of violence that he wrought was something, even as a fan of history, I was completely unfamiliar with, because in California, they kind of just tell us that he's a bandit Robin Hood hero. He is also, though, Markovitsky says it here, he is the inspiration for Zorro. He is this kind of bandit hero that they conceptualized and made a
mythology. They made a mythology.
Yeah, a mythology out of, and it is the real story behind it is, as is often the case with mythology, so much more visceral, so much more brutal, and really, to me, so much more entertaining. So I can't recommend this enough. I know a lot of the chat loves to read. So,
I said, there's this kind of tendency of people who are confined by the shackles of society to fantasize and mythologize the people who are outside of that, and who are like the rebels against that.
It's understandable.
It is understandable because, man, it's the same reason people like superheroes.
Yes,
and even when superheroes can get real dark, because it's like, well, but they're rebelling against a corrupt authority.
And people like duality, this notion of a heart of gold and the capability of violence, and this kind of struggle between those two.
Yes. And
but often there's no heart of gold there. Like you're just kind of making that up.
And this is kind of one of the conundrums of you see this in some of the red pill type people on the internet. You just got to be like super hyper masculine and like just aggressive all the time, and that's going to be what, like, it's going to. The problem is most people, if you do that, what you're actually going to become is violent and angry, and it's like, and this is kind of the I'm.
Are you familiar with Wes Watson?
No.
And that he's the embodiment of what you're talking about. Yes, he tried to. That was his shtick, and now he's going to jail for a long time for assaulting somebody in a gym.
I think that I think there's a shocking number of these kind of red pill influencer types who they went so far down that they ended up getting in trouble with the law, because it's like, it's one of those things where you can't engage in some of this and have it not affect the rest of your personality.
Yeah, no way.
This is kind of the great this is the great kind of conundrum within male and female relationships too. I don't know if anyone wants to get into this, but I'm going to get into it now because we're here for talking. In some ways, the kind of the male fantasy is they want a good girl who's only bad for them. I'm stealing this from somewhere else.
That is correct. Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah. They want a good girl who's only bad for them.
I believe Ludacris summed it up as a lady in the streets, but a freak in the bed. I believe.
Yeah. I've heard. Yeah, you've heard this multiple. And women want the reverse. They want a bad guy who's only good for them. And the problem is neither of those things exist.
No.
It's like
not really.
They don't really exist.
No.
It's like people are not so compartmentalized that they can have wildly different versions of themselves and both be true. It's like one of those things is fake. Like that's you cannot be in some. Yeah, they exist in Disney movies. That's about it. Is in real life those people don't exist, because what actually happens is let's say you're behaving in both of these very different ways. Eventually, like, you are changed by the way that you're behaving, in one way or the other. And either you can kind of like, and that's the good news of that, is it means you can reform yourself and you can actually become a better person. That's the kind of Christian message.
You were telling me about KGB agents that infiltrated monasteries during the USSR.
Yep.
And didn't they essentially?
There were the for those who are not aware, this is a little known thing, and the Russian Orthodox Church existed still at the time of the USSR. Eventually, they kind of basically the government came to kind of they initially had tried to wipe it out, and eventually kind of came to a accord with them. Part of that's through the efforts of people like Patriarch Sergius. Some people really hate Patriarch Sergius, but it's a thing that I'm not necessarily going to take a position on. Patriarch Sergius, or it was Bishop Sergius at the time, basically in a time when the Nazis were advancing into Russia, and Stalin was in hiding. Like they'd completely gone into hiding. Bishop Sergius, even though he was an outlaw, right? I mean, religion was illegal. Gets on the radio and tells people to fight for Mother Russia, and it actually inspires millions of people to go do that. Because a lot of the Russians in had actually just kind of surrendered to the Nazis in many cases.
Yeah,
because they had been part of the white Russia, like they were the pro-czarist kind of areas.
Yes.
And they weren't really happy with the communists anyway.
Weren't super pumped on communism.
They had started, but then when a bishop gets on the air, and says you need to fight for the motherland, fight for Mother Russia, they do so. And it's one of the things
that's really that's why the KGB found it so important to infiltrate the church, correct?
So afterwards, Stalin actually invites Bishop Sergius to a meeting, and Stalin says, well, I hear you do not have a patriarch right now. Well, you should get one. And that was kind of Stalin basically giving his acquiesce since he ends up becoming the patriarch Sergius. Patriarch Sergius is a controversial figure within Russian Orthodoxy sometimes, but I don't want to get into the stuff there. But what happens over time basically is the church is kind of allowed to exist as long as it's monitored and as long as it doesn't actively support insurrection.
Yeah.
And so they in order to monitor the church, the KGB basically sends KGB people who are trained by the KGB to go and infiltrate into the church hierarchy. And so they had them go to the seminaries, go like become priests and bishops and monks. Mostly, I think priests and bishops. I'm not sure they got so much into the monastic communities or not, but I could be wrong.
But enough to report on the inner workings of the church.
And that was their duty, was to report on the inner workings. But by all kind of public appearances, they were ordained priests and bishops.
Sure. Yep.
Even though they had been placed there by the KGB. My father is an Orthodox priest. He went to seminary in New York, and back when he was in seminary, the USSR was still a thing. And they actually were visited by bishops from Russia at one point, because it was the Russian Orthodox seminary that he went to. They told them ahead of time, you'll be able to figure out which one's the KGB agent, and they could. He said, yeah, like there was one of them. Bishops have kind of a certain aura about them that a KGB agent does not. It was, and that would be typical, right? It's basically you're going to have a group of bishops, but you're going to have one of them is going to be a KGB agent who's there to make sure that they're not, that they're not acting against the interests of the government.
Well, if you dress me up like a Delta Force operator, it'd be like, that's the guy who's not actually,
Exactly. Right. And so, but what ended up happening over time is those
agents,
as they were doing the services, doing all of the things that were required of priests and bishops. They had to do the prayers, give communion. Many of them actually started to genuinely convert. And there was a kind of a conundrum within the church as to what do we do with these people after the Soviet Union had fallen. And basically and the people themselves were in a conundrum. They didn't know what to do with themselves. It was like, well, what do I do? I haven't felt like I've been a KGB agent for years now. I'm just here doing the services because I actually think I believe this now.
Sure. Yes,
and exactly. the church came to the conclusion that they were legitimately priests and bishops, and many of them were allowed to remain that way. And because it was like, well, if you believe that these things have a real power, a real transformative power, you have to kind of the only logical conclusion from that is that if you engage in them, they are going to transform you.
There's a notion within psychology that the mind works on, which I don't know, man. Psychology is kind of meh with their replication crisis, but this theory I believe is sound. They posit that the mind works on a succession. A series that it works from saturation to incubation to illumination, or kind of the meaning like showing light on the new behavior or the new worldview. So when one is saturated in an environment, and then their mind has time to incubate on that saturation or the new world that they're surrounded by, you will get a new illumination or a new worldview. And that can happen in a good way we would consider it a very good way with the KGB and the infiltration of the Russian Orthodox Church there, or a bad way, which happens with Joaquin Murrieta and many, many people. Look at Billy the Kid or innumerable morally dubious figures, outlaw figures throughout the history, where they kind of start buying their own gimmick. Maybe they don't start out as like a bad guy, but they start buying their gimmick, and they're surrounded by other criminals and outlaws. And it's like a wildfire that gets out of control. And before you know it, they really are kind of this bad guy. They're not like a cool dude.
Yes. And the reality of this is true is what the kind of the truth of human psychology really is. What you do is who you are, right? People like to think, well, I'm going to do this, but my inner self is not really, I'm not really that, but even though I'm doing these things. And it's like, and that's a myth. That's the myth that we tell ourselves to kind of justify things. Like, but no, you are what you do. And it's an inescapable fact that the thing, and it's not that like, okay, yeah, I'm not saying that if you one time did something bad, you're just a bad person. No, I'm saying that as you engage in
we are what we repeatedly do.
Yeah. As you engage in activities, those things change you. And you basically you become a person who does those things. And this idea that you can like compartmentalize yourself to the extent that like I can engage in these things but not have it like, but then somehow be like a core like a true, a truly good person in my heart is a fantasy. And this is like, and people have been fantasizing about this for a long time. This is why the worst book ever written was Wuthering Heights. I hated that book so much.
That was a drag.
Yeah. Heathcliff is a terrible person. There is no redeeming quality to him.
He sucks.
He is a monster. And yet he's this like, women swoon over him because it's like this fantasy that you have the guy who's evil, but he's gonna be good for me, and it's like it's just, man.
It was the same way with Murrieta. There were so many, and you see it to, I don't know if you remember the Lacey Peterson and Scott Peterson case. You saw it with Richard Ramirez. You see it with many notorious, I don't know what the YouTube word I can say, murderers. I think I can say that. Yeah, many notorious murderers throughout history have a collection of women that write them, that are kind of a fan club because they believe that there's some duality, some secret duality to that person,
Well, and you look at this is the subject of these are the subjects of female pornography, which is typically erotic literature, which is female.
We gotta say corn. I know we gotta say corn.
Okay, whatever.
Or else they'll get us for that.
Whatever. Like that is what is the kind of that's the trap of the kind of it's so Beauty and the Beast is, I'm gonna push back on that a little bit.
Oh, real quick, Jeff Baum says that we're talking about basically the story Beauty and the Beast.
I will push back on Beauty and the Beast being a part of this. Beauty and the Beast is the archetypal heroine's journey, because and the reason is because the Beast by the end becomes the prince, and he becomes the good person for her, right? Like, and truly becomes that. The Beast is like, he's rough around the edges, but he's softened by a woman, right? And that's the archetypal kind of heroine's journeys. You find a guy who is not fully a monster, but is a little bit rough but tameable, and then you tame him, and because it's the kind of archetypally feminine myth of like, you bring order to chaos, right? That's kind of what the feminine is within kind of mythology. It is the bringer of order. Like nature is chaotic. It's interesting because nature is oftentimes also characterized as feminine, but it's also the ordering principle, right? And so it's very that Beauty and the Beast is the kind of archetypal heroine's journey. It is.
Bamadan, I'm not sure if you're asking if Beauty and the Beast is based off of a true story.
I've heard that before, but I don't know if there's actually any truth to that. And I'd be scared. I mean, it's based off of a fairy tale, right? But I think that the story of Beauty and the Beast is way older than the current versions of it, right? So it's like this is a repeated theme within mythology.
Jeff Baum is asking about the order of what? I'm not sure.
I'm not sure what you're referencing.
Yeah, if you can clarify just for a little bit, Jeff Baum will clear that up. Bama Deanna says yes. He's asking if Beauty and the Beast is based off of a true story, and you're saying it's more of an archetype.
I think that the story that we know may or may, I don't actually know, it may or may not be based off of some real event, but I'm willing to argue that the core elements of the story are actually much older than the popularized like the Disney version of it, right? The version that comes from. It's a like this is an archetypal story. This is the same on the same level of magnitude as
Romeo and Juliet.
It's Hercules and in any kind of hero's journey, because it's the heroine's journey, right? It is the archetypal heroine's journey, and the whereas like the masculine hero, the hero's journey involves like you have to go out and fight against nature, and then like come back, right, and like take the prize, subdue it, and then like you slay the beast, slay the dragon, and like bring back the treasure, right? And the heroine's journey is a little bit more, is more like
she has to open a beauty line and then start a restaurant that serves avocado toast.
No. I'm being serious here, right? Sorry, excuse me here, getting over a little allergy thing. The heroine's journey is that is not in subduing nature; it's in ordering it.
Oh, very interesting.
Because, and I think it comes from, because in mythology, nature and the earth is pretty much universally presented as feminine.
Oh yeah,
and so the part of the heroine's journey though is you cannot be this kid, you can't, you have to order that nature, right? Order create the kind of order and stability within your circle, right? I mean, that's I think that's correct.
That's a great point. Never thought of that. Well, let's hit the chats, dude. Let's do you want to do a book recommendation?
I will if you want.
Do you want to hit the chats first, or do you want to do a book?
I'll give my quick one. I'm not at home right now, so I don't have my bookshelf, and like I wanted to go look through my bookshelf and find something. So I was a little bit like struggling to come up with something, but then I thought something I've actually mentioned before, and it kind of touches on some of the themes we've been talking here tonight, quite honestly, is Romance of the Three Kingdoms, Lo Guan Chung. It is the original Chinese novel. You could probably pretty easily find it online for free at this point. You can also easily get Kindle versions on Amazon. I will say, and Romance of the Three Kingdoms is kind of it's a dramatized history of the Three Kingdoms era, following kind of several of the major characters. There's 2 volumes. I would say you don't really have to necessarily get both volumes. I will give one big not warning, just something to be aware of anytime you're getting something that's translated from Chinese, especially Chinese names. There's 2 different ways that Chinese names are sometimes translated. And so sometimes you'll read a name and it will be spelled differently than the name that you are thinking of. So it's the same person, but it's like because they don't necessarily like you could. So the example I'll give is one of the main characters is Liu Bei, and in Chinese, like you have your family name comes first, and then your given name, and then sometimes you have another name which is your style name, and some people go by their style. We can get into. It's weird, whatever. That. But Liu Bei, Bei will be spelled 2 different ways depending on which system of spelling you're using. It'll either be spelled with a B, which is the way that I commonly know it as.
In this one book? In the same book?
Not within the same book, but different versions. You might find different versions, different translations. You could, like, that's why I'm giving this caveat. Yeah, Jake Skywalker put it here. That is how it's the I is actually before the U. So it's a Liu Bei. So yeah.
Well, you said there's multiple spellings.
Well, no. In this case, not for this. Sometimes you will see Bei with a P, so to be Pei. Now, the reason for this is because the actual character, like the word in Chinese, like the consonants aren't exactly what our consonants are. So the actual kind of sound is something in between a B and a P, which it do kind of sound similar. So you might see versions that will have it Liu Bei with a P. Most of the newer versions, I think, use the B spelling, and and it's not just with this name; it's with all of the names, basically, a lot of them. So usually, if you find an older version that will have some of the old ways of translating, usually it's still decipherable. But that's just a warning to anytime you're getting something that's translated from Chinese. Is there's two ways to do the spelling, and sometimes you might yes, Lu Bu is in the book. He is a character in the book. He is in volume 1 especially.
Jeff Baum asks if Lu Bu is in this book. So Sam's saying he is. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we do get a super chat here. So let's
I was going to say, let's hit the super chat from Jake Skywalker. Thank you so much for a $2 super chat. Thank you so much, sir.
I think it's going to spark some debate.
Feel free to send in the super chats if you really want us to get to your question first. I'll throw that in there.
I bet he did. I bet he wanted to get the controversy on this.
Well, let's start it off, sir. Are you going to see the Odyssey?
Yes, I am going to go see the Odyssey.
Oh, okay.
I am aware of. I fully expect it to be terrible. Okay. I have
so is this kind of a
low expectations for
Freud thing.
No, I'm going to go see it because I have learned enough to not really buy into what the hype and anti-hype in the modern world.
Fair.
So I will go see it. I'm actually going to go see. I'm going to go see Supergirl, I think, soon. Partially because my friend actually went and saw. I had kind of not thought I was going to enjoy it. One of my friends went and saw it and said he actually enjoyed it. So I will go see it and see if I agree with him.
Do you have any issues with the casting, as many people do?
I have intentionally not paid attention to the casting. So okay, I will say this: if they like race swap people, I don't really, for something that's Greek mythology, I don't really care. Okay. I come on, it's Greek mythology. It's not history. I don't like it when they do that.
That's a fair point.
I don't like it when they do that. But if you're gonna do that in Greek mythology, it's like, okay, what do I?
I would agree with that, and I would throw this out there. Maybe I'm gonna lob this fastball up for you. I think people have more of an issue with the motivation behind that. I'm not even saying that I do.
And I generally don't like it. And I generally don't like it. I think that
you're saying you generally or genuinely.
Generally, do not. I do not. Now, and the reason I do not is because it's never done in the reverse, right?
Yeah, no, that would be unacceptable.
And so it's like it is a weird kind of like reverse racism. But that said, it's like, okay, but if you're a black actor and you want to be in this, you want to be in more roles that are just for black characters. Well, okay, whatever.
Like you said,
there are some mythology. It's mythology. This is Greek mythology. This is like, okay, whatever. I think that, and the way you do it is you just have them in there and you just never have people comment on it because it's like, okay, whatever. And this is like they obviously knew that they were dark-skinned people. The Greeks had they knew about the Egyptians. Yeah. They knew about people in North Africa, right? I mean, Ethiopians.
People have a wildly skewed view of the ancient world.
Yeah. There was like I don't know, and it's
that they had no notion of. They don't even think. I think most people think that despite Greece and Rome's proximity to Northern Africa, they had no idea it even existed. They're like.
And chances are, like okay, so if they're having, I'm being honest, if they're having white Anglo people playing Greeks, then they're the wrong race, quite honestly, because Greeks are not that light skinned.
No, that's a great point.
Nor are Italians, especially in ancient times when you're spent a lot more time outside, a lot more exposure to the sun, which means you're going to have naturally much tanner skin anyway. And if you're along the Mediterranean, I mean the same with like Spaniards, Italians, and Greeks, like they have more kind of an olive tone to their skin. That's just kind of the reality. So it's like within this specific context, if they're doing weird race swap stuff, I don't really care. It's like, okay, it's Greek mythology. There are times when I care about it, especially if it's like,
now if they made Shaka Zulu played by I don't know, Chris Hemsted, then I'd be like, well, this is weird, you know.
And in the same way, like sometimes you'll see like if the setting is Victorian England, and you have like a noble woman who's like a black woman, and I've seen shows like that. I've not seen them, but I've seen stuff with shows like trailers for stuff like this. That's when it gets absurd, because it's like, no, because those racial dynamics at this time actually exist, and you're just ignoring them.
How do you feel about something like Hamilton?
I love Hamilton. And I think Hamilton is actually a great, because Hamilton, it's musical theater. It's an artistic representation.
Yeah, it's again, yeah,
it's you're a little bit it's very intentionally presenting like it was a very intentional effort to present the American story as an American story as a universal story, and that was the intent behind that. That's why they intentionally had different racial groups playing these American figures. And it wasn't I don't think in that sense it was trying to be like, I thought that was actually a really beautiful thing, because it was like they were trying to say that this is a universal story, and the American mythology doesn't have to just be for specific racial groups.
Fair.
And I really appreciate that. And I think, and musical theater is a good place you could do that, because it's already like it's the over the top melodramatic. I love musical theater, by the way. I grew up. My dad plays the piano really well. You can see the point the camera briefly. That's the piano over there.
Yeah. I didn't see that. Okay.
That we have had since he's had my entire life. And I grew up with my dad playing show tunes, and me learning to sing by him playing various stuff.
Sure.
When he went to seminary in New York, like the seminary he went to is like in upstate New York, not in the city, but it was close enough that he would go into the city a lot and get like the half price Broadway show, like the shows that were kind of on Broadway, but not like it was cheap to do that at that point. And he was, he's a broke college student, so he loved to do that, and so he's always had a love of musical theater. My mom does as well. I love musical theater. It's a I will defend to my dying days the musical theater. The people who just can't stand it, I don't understand you, man. That's like
I was one of those until we watched Paint Your Wagon on this channel, and then that converted me.
Well, it's music has a way of transcending.
It's a vehicle too. It can be a very effective vehicle to tell a story and to give it a different flavor.
Yeah, and nothing. I don't think there's anything that can manipulate people's emotions as easily as music can.
No way.
But yeah, I will see the Odyssey. I don't really expect much from it. I'm expecting it to be bad. I am expecting it to be bad for reasons that probably nobody is talking about. I can explain that to you if you want, but I explained it to Brandon. I have a interesting theory about certain things. So I'm expecting it to be bad, but I will go see it regardless. It's the Odyssey. It's just one of the great myths of Western civilization. And Christopher Nolan is one of the last great directors, so he might have a stinker here and there, but he has enough. He has enough good credit built up with me, that I'm willing to like give him a chance, even when people say this is gonna be terrible. because of this. Christopher Nolan, it's like, yeah. And by the way, like true artists, part of the mark of true artists is they are going to miss the mark sometimes. But if you're gonna have, but it's actually okay. It's okay. Like that's part of the artistic process. Means you kind of have to miss the mark sometimes.
My grandpa was a wonderful artist. He did these pictures behind me here, and his he had no training or anything, but his saying, which I really took to heart, was the difference between an artist and someone who's not an artist is 10,000 mistakes. They are willing to go out and keep making mistakes until you finally do get to your masterpiece. And I think that's true for if you think about how many stinkers Michelangelo
and artists themselves are oftentimes not good judges of their own art.
No, of course that's why you play in front of the crowd.
Tchaikovsky famously hated the Nutcracker, which is his most probably the piece the thing he's known the best for. And he hated it. He hated
very common phenomenon amongst artists that their big hit is something that they really don't like.
Yeah.
Well, Sam has convinced me I will be seeing the Odyssey as well. Jake Skywalker, I shorted you on our new feature for Super Chats, the intense applause. So thank you. Really appreciate that. So I believe we have actually, I got a bunch of new comments rolling in. I have Jeff Baum has become a new member, and Jeff Baum, thank you so much. You have also.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. Very much appreciate that. I actually had another question in here. Where did it go? Oh no. Let's see. India Wildcat, what's up, bro? I just saw your email, so I'm gonna be getting to that after the show. Book recommendation for Mark Kavitsky. Book recommendation: Daily Life in Medieval Times. Have you ever read that?
No, I haven't. I will put that one on my list here, though.
Have you watched the Burrowers? Indiana.
I don't know what that is, and
so no. Greeks had men playing women in their theater.
Yeah, you in fact have men playing every part in Greek theater. You didn't have female actors until much later. And
Deanna asks, "Can I see your piano, Sam? I missed it."
It's not my piano. It is my father's piano. It's there in the corner.
Very nice. I didn't know your dad played piano.
Oh yeah, he's very good.
I'm the same. I grew up with my dad playing guitar.
That's how I learned. That's how I learned to sing. That's how I learned music.
I got one now.
My dad playing piano. I went. I think it was my 5th birthday. They as a birthday present, they took me to see Phantom of the Opera, which is my favorite work of fiction on the entire planet. In the entirety of fiction, the Phantom of the Opera musical is my 100% favorite thing of all time. And that has not changed since I was 5 years old. That has been the same. I think that it is an absolute masterpiece.
I have one Western that I would like to show you at some point that I think you would actually enjoy. It's called The Searchers, and I think as a piece of art, I think you would really appreciate it. It's a true story.
I've enjoyed. I don't.
I know.
Westerns. Yeah, I've enjoyed some Westerns. I'm just not like. I'm not like.
That's why you're here.
Super big into it.
Yeah. But it's just one that I understand. Westerns, country music can be like, oh, it's a little formulaic. But when they get it right, they get it really right. It's really
that's part of what art is, because you kind of have to. I think you're talking grease, but it's spelled like grease, like an oil, like slick, like oil slick.
I think she's being.
I think she's okay. I bet she's being a joke.
Anne Hathaway is in it. Yes, anything with Anne Hathaway, I will go see. Go see.
So yeah, I'll go see it. I have low expectations, but
let's give it up for Anne Hathaway real quick.
But Christopher Nolan has done enough amazing works of art that if he has a stinker, he still probably is going to deserve my money, because like I'll support his stinkers to, yeah.
Mark Kavitsky says, Phantom of the Opera, I saw it 8 times before its ending.
If you're talking about the sequel that they made, that doesn't exist. You cannot convince me otherwise. It was a horrible travesty that Andrew Lloyd Webber decided he needed a payday real bad, and couldn't think of anything
of that here.
I was
explain that a little bit, Mark. I'm not sure what you mean.
I'm not sure if that's what he means or not, but it's no Phantom of the Opera. The ending of Phantom of the Opera is perfect. It doesn't require anything else.
Jeff Baum says my favorite musical.
You have good taste then, sir, because it is. I think it is the greatest musical of all time. I think it's the greatest. It's so it's so close to the. I mean, I think the character of the Phantom is just probably my favorite character of any character in fiction.
I've never seen it. I only know like the
oh my gosh
over his face.
You know what? Okay, you need to. I will. If you want to watch it, the best way to do that is not actually the movie version, which was okay, but it was not great. The best way to watch it is actually sometimes you can find it for free, but I have it on YouTube and as well.
A video of the play
is the 30th anniversary I think it's the 30th anniversary at the Prince Albert Concert Hall, which was a huge. They did a huge production for like the 30th anniversary with like. And yeah, and you can find that pretty easily.
Oh, I never thought about that.
Rent it or buy it.
Yeah.
And so you can see you can really it's the closest you get to experiencing the actual like being in the play. And the music the singing is fantastic. The orchestration is fantastic. The dancing, everything is very, very well done in that production. And the it's the kind of work of art that we're just so unlikely to ever get something that good again. Like, and I mean that because it kind of just like, first of all, like most sopranos can't sing it, very, very well. Like it was literally like part of that part for Christine Daae was written for Sarah Brightman, with her in mind, with her abilities in mind. It was the original Christine, who was, I think, at the time dating Andrew Lloyd Webber. And
when did the play come out?
They were actually married for a while, I believe. I don't remember. And
you don't. When did it debut?
I do not remember.
Oh, that's what you're saying. You don't remember. Gotcha. Sorry.
Yeah, and it was before my time, but it was the Sarah Brightman is one of the greatest sopranos of all time. She has something like I don't know. She has a range that's like octaves beyond what even well-trained singers can do. I think she said at one point she had I mean most, like, if you sing a lot, you can probably get a two octave range. Maybe 2.5 if you're really like pushing it.
Yep.
But that's what most people have, and I think Sarah Brightman has like a 4 octave range.
I've heard that Axl Rose has 5, and I wouldn't doubt it.
Yeah. It's so few people actually have. It's now it's more common, even for women. It's rarer too. Men are more likely to have the larger octave range, because men can use their head voice, and if you can use your head voice really well, that can basically extend your range a lot.
They have a naturally lower register too, so it's like, well, they can go down lower and then work up higher.
Which also means that in higher notes require less air, so it's like you can do it it's easier in some ways.
What was the singer's name again?
Sarah Brightman.
Sarah Brightman, got it.
Yeah, she was an opera singer, and then she's kind of one of the people who started the kind of pop classical genre, along with like Josh. Have you heard like Josh Groban?
Yeah, oh yeah.
It's the same genre. She does. She's one of the people who kind of started that genre of like pop it's pop classical, right? And that was kind of what I grew up listening to a lot as well. And yeah, she has like a 4 octave range. So the normal limitations when you're writing a song for a singer to sing, kind of don't apply to her, right? Because it's like she has such a huge range. So some of the songs in that are like Think of Me is a lot of versions of that song that are performed are modified to not have the insanity that the insane range that it has in the original London version, right? Because it's like because most people can't do that.
It's why people don't cover Guns N' Roses and Led Zeppelin songs, because like They can't sing.
You can't do that. You can't do it. You can't physically do it. It's some people just have that gift, right? Yep. And so yeah, when you write I don't know specifically if he actually wrote the piece for her or not. I think it's very clear that yes, that's what he wrote that with her in mind.
Sarah Brightman and her sisters are great singers, says Mark Kavitsky.
I don't know who her sister is, but yes, I think she's like 60 years old now. But yeah, I listened to a lot of Sarah Brightman growing up. I'm very much kind of but yeah, she was married to Andrew Lloyd Webber for a while. They had a kind of a messy divorce, unfortunately, but that's happens so often with artists.
No such thing as a clean divorce.
I know.
Deanna wants to know if you've heard of Project Gutenberg.
No, I do not. Have not heard of that.
I had one more I wanted you to see here. Blah, 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 blah. Oh, Wicked 1 was good. Wicked 2 was bad. Are you familiar with those?
Did they make a second Wicked? I don't think there is a Wicked 2.
Did you watch the first one?
Oh, you're talking about how they split it into two movies in the Hollywood version. Right? No, that was such a fucking money grab. Sorry for swearing here.
Language, young Sam.
I know that was such a money grab. They really did not need to do that. The musical did not require two separate movies, especially two movies of the length that they made them to fit that entire musical in. And I like Wicked. I've seen Wicked.
I can't do Wizard of Oz, man. It freaks me out. Anything Wizard of Oz.
I've seen Wicked in theater. I sang Wicked songs when I was in show choir in high school. Like we sang some of those. So I have a lot of nostalgia towards Wicked. So I enjoyed the movies, both of them. And
says, simmer down, Sam.
I enjoyed the movies, but it was going to be pretty hard for me not to enjoy the movies, just with like the amount of like nostalgia from my high school show choir days.
Yeah.
Were just brewing within me. So even though, yeah, they I will say, some of the songs in the movie version were better than others. I will say that part 2 did have which has my favorite song in it. I thought it was the best song of the movie, which is No Good Deed Goes Unpunished. Great song, and it was really well done in the movie. But
no, I'm open to watching these. So we got to get some movies together that you've seen and that I've seen, but now the other person hasn't seen. And I'll show you 8 seconds. We'll see how you like 8 seconds starring Luke Perry.
Sure. But I will happily, anytime you want to watch Phantom of the Opera.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can come over here. I will put it on.
We could do a watch party night.
I think you'll know me well enough. You'll understand why I love it so much.
Yeah.
And maybe this is arrogant of me for in some ways, but the Phantom is just a character in fiction that I feel like I relate to the most. I mean, the guy who was the true lover of beauty, and was true in that. Like, he was an honest and true lover of beauty. And yet was born deformed and hideous and hated by everybody for no kind of fault of his own. And he became, the monster because that was the only road open to him.
Story of my life.
But he wanted to be, it's a beautiful work of art. The music is amazing. If you listen to it, you can still get the London cast recording, which has Sarah Brightman as Christine and Crawford. What's his first name? Is it Jimmy Crawford? I don't remember.
Terrence Crawford?
No.
That's a boxer.
Who was it? No, I don't know. It's not Phantom.
While we're looking at that, Jake Skywalker says Wicked movies are way less freaky than Wizard of Oz. Is that true?
Yeah, they're very, very much so. They're very the I don't think you would be freaked out by.
All right. Okay.
We can discuss that in depth if you want to later, but it's I don't think the all right, I'm trying to find casting. Okay, casting.
I'll run through a couple more chats here. There's a website where they have over 77,000 books for free, like the Journals of Lewis, and it is a website. Which website are you talking about, Bama Deanna?
Michael Crawford. Sorry, Michael Crawford is the original Phantom of the Opera.
Sorry, real quick. Let me clear this up. Bama Deanna, yes, I'm sorry. I have heard of Project Gutenberg. That's the guy who invented the printing press. I was trying to run that through my mind. Yes, Project Gutenberg. I've used it before for the show. They have 77,000 books. They have Journals of Lewis and Clark. I believe Jedediah Smith. It's a great.
You might
great
find
resource.
Romance of the Three Kingdoms on there. Quite honestly.
Oh, good point. Yeah.
I think a lot. I think okay. You're right. Actually,
I think that's what she was saying, and I'm just piecing it together.
I don't know why I didn't realize that when I have heard of Project Gutenberg. Okay, yeah, it's a place where they have books that are not under copyright.
I don't know why that slipped my mind. I was trying to piece it together. Gutenberg books. Thank you.
Yeah. I
I'm a little slow about that.
I don't know. It's getting late, so who knows?
Well, we'll go a couple more questions here. Mark Kavitsky says Emmy Rossum was great on the video version of Phantom of the Opera.
Is that the movie version? I don't. The movie was okay. I'm not dissing on the movie. The movie was okay, but it was not as good as seeing in the theater. I think that the things that they cut to make time in the movie, like they cut some things out, they rushed some things, and I think really does detract from it. So that's my take on that. I mean, that's why I tell people, if you want to see it, the best way to do it now is, and if it's not touring, which it still does tour periodically, I go see it every time. I've seen it in the theater many times at this point, because pretty much anytime there's my parents get season tickets to Broadway across America, and which means that they can also get to buy extra tickets of show when shows come. So they, like when they were shows that I want to see, that they usually get me a ticket as well.
That's how my family was with Merle Haggard. He comes through town, we go see him.
Yeah. So I've seen it many times. I've seen Wicked several times too. In theater.
Real quick, I wanted to touch on this. Bama Deanna says, I bet Prince had a big range. Yes, Bama Deanna, you probably know this already, but you've probably seen this. I want to suggest for everyone here, though, to go look at Prince's 1978, I believe, appearance on Don Kirshner's rock concert, where he plays two songs, my favorite of which is Why You Want to Hurt Me So Bad. It is absolutely amazing. He rips an amazing guitar solo afterwards, and he has, I think, high heels and like buttless chaps or something on. So quite the outfit too. A real fashion icon. Let's see. There was a couple more I wanted to touch on here. Oh yeah, I wanted to show you this, Sam. I don't know if you've seen this before, but speaking of actors playing roles that they may not be particularly suited for, this is John Wayne playing Genghis Khan. I don't know if you're familiar.
Yeah. I know who John Wayne is, but
well, it's him playing Genghis Khan. There's one of Charles Bronson. I didn't bring it up yet, but Charles Bronson playing I believe Geronimo. So it's nothing new casting.
It's not. And so part of the kind of the reason that people justify doing it now in the reverse is because it was done for so many years.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Now
that movie is cited ad nauseum in that case.
Now, the reason I will say that I don't think that really holds up is well, there wasn't a Mongolian actor you could have gone to find to play that role. And especially not one who would have sold tickets like John Wayne would have.
True. That's the
it's
big
a little
caveat.
bit like you're in some of the people, like, they're inferring racist motivations where the motivations may have not actually been racism, just may have been other factors. And so it's like I don't and I also just don't generally believe that you can make amends for past racism by current racism. I don't see any way how that's going to lead to.
And it's a much more nuanced subject. Like many of the actors in
but
Western films,
that is what people believe. Like people actually unironically believe some of the the far left, like unironically believe that the solution to historic racism is enforced current racism against the other group.
They truly believe there's some kind of cosmic balancing that can be done.
And what I think that it's a very naive and very, quite honestly, very dark belief.
Very immature.
Because what actually happens is what vengeance breeds is future vengeance, right?
That's it.
And this is so. I'll go back to what I talked about earlier with Thomas Hobbes. Like, this is what the state of nature is. The state of nature is the war of all against all, because if I cannot trust you to not unalive me, I have to unalive you in as soon as I can. And vengeance breeds an escalating hatred. It is just a fact of human society, of human history.
So it's largely people unfamiliar with history who believe that this balancing act can be accomplished.
But they believe in this progressive idea of history.
It's really regressive,
which is exactly what will actually happen is, like, you can play this out, right? What will actually happen is if you have a prolonged period of enforced racism against a certain group in retaliation for past racism, what you'll end up doing is and this is what you've actually seen happen in America.
South Africa.
You're seeing it in America too.
I'm just saying, you can really starkly see it. Yeah.
You're seeing a generation of people grow up deeply resentful. And because it's like, well, I'm not a racist. I didn't oppress people, I didn't own slaves. I didn't, I'm
zero. Yeah.
Even if my ancestors did, which I don't think none of mine, I think did. But I haven't done an exhaustive check. And it's like, and it'd be ridiculous. No, great. Because actually a very, very, very small number of people did own slaves, even if you lived in the South. Like most people, the actual slave owners were a very small,
very, very, very
minority.
I would say look into that.
Yeah. And it's like it's like, you're imposing so what will actually happen is this is what is happening now, is you have a generation of people who are growing up feeling increasingly frustrated and disenfranchised and persecuted against. And they're told, well, you just have to take it because it's revenge for past aggression, and you deserve it. And if you but people are going to accept that. There's this myth that you can get people to just en masse accept and internalize that they deserve to be persecuted, and it's not true. What you'll actually do is you'll build up resentment. You'll build up, and resentment will fester until it boils over. And then if it's not kind of like carefully contained, what you'll see is you'll see a reverse of a cycle again, where you'll have,
you can see the comment here.
The group that is now persecuted will become the persecutors again because of for the same reasons, and they will say the same kind of justifications for it. It's like, you persecuted us, so of course we're going to persecute you now, and it's like,
and let's be fair,
it's not on and on.
It's not easy to stop that cycle. Let's be
it's
fair.
Very difficult. And this is why kind of, Christianity offers a way out of that, but it is a very difficult way for people to accept, and it requires a lot of you, and in many cases requires martyrdom of people. That you cannot engage in vengeance. God says, vengeance is mine. That God reserves vengeance for himself. And for a long time, I actually thought what that meant was, well, because God will execute perfect justice, on everybody. And that's not what it means. I asked my father one, who's a priest, and what he told me is God reserves vengeance for himself because God is not vengeful.
Wow.
If God was vengeful, we're all toast.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
Let's be honest, man. We've we've all done things that we should be deeply ashamed of.
Sure.
And probably are.
I've done them on this live stream.
And it's like, the reason God reserves vengeance is because God is not vengeful. God doesn't want to enact vengeance. And because it's the same way he forbids that from us, because we shouldn't want to do that. If you want to bring yourself in alignment with God, you have to reject that calling, reject that urge to be vengeful, to be and it's like, and that is a hard thing to do.
It's a hard thing to convince people to do. Yeah. Let me I have two. Okay, let's do this one next, then I'm gonna get to Theo Wise's comment. Sam, you're well equipped to answer.
It's not.
Why is the God of the Old Testament
there is no difference.
So different.
Now I understand why people say that. And I think it comes from a misinterpretation of the Bible. It comes from really bad translations of the Bible, and a misinterpretation of how things are. Okay, so I am not a lot of mainline Protestants now are their theology is what's known as dispensationalism, and they have this idea that there's different dispensations of time under which God treats people differently in different periods of time, and that is it was a fringe theological movement that came out of Scotland that becomes very popular in Church of Christ. You're going to get dispensationalists, and becomes very popular in mainline Protestantism, especially outside of the big denominations, and even now it's kind of infiltrated the big denominations. Now,
meaning I don't know, Baptists, Presbyterians.
Most of the other groups, most of the larger groups of Christianity, and at one point, basically all of Christianity, would have believed in what's called sometimes covenant theology, which is that God saves people through covenants with them. And there was an old covenant, and that existed within the Old Testament, and now there is a new covenant that exists. And the old covenant has been fulfilled through the coming of Jesus Christ. It is that's why we no longer have to do the animal sacrifices and such, which were part of the old covenant, because it was part of there had to be this ritual shedding of blood in order to basically to appease, not appease. I don't
right. That's why I'm saying that. I'm saying that as a question mark.
But as payment for as payment for the sins that the people had committed, so that God does not hold the blood against us. But Christ was the final sacrifice. It was Christ through God's own blood. He now redeems. He changes that, and it's not.
The big crux of that is they are not different.
They are not different, and I think that so I understand why people say that, and it's an interpretation of the Old Testament that you find sometimes in certain Protestant groups and Protestant theology. I don't believe that, Markovitsky. I am not. I don't believe in.
Read the statement real quick.
Covenants do not end. Each group has a covenant that must be respected. No, that is not the case at all. The old covenant is no longer binding. The old covenant was fulfilled through Jesus Christ. It is no longer binding. It is no longer in play. And it doesn't exist anymore. It is not So it shouldn't be, yeah. So I know this is sometimes a very controversial statement. Like, I'm Orthodox. I don't believe in that kind of theology. The old covenant is fulfilled. There is no more Jew or Greek or Syrian or Egyptian. There's no Jews or Gentiles. There is only those who accept Christ. We are the new Israel. That's there is no special carve out for people following the old covenant. They were told that to convert, and the vast majority did. This is people don't like,
you're talking first, second, third century AD.
Within the first 200 years really of Christianity, the vast majority of Jews in the Middle East and elsewhere converted to Christianity. The group that maintained Judaism was a very small fringe minority, who come out of the group called the Pharisees, the Pharisaic Judaism. Basically which was one of the kind of one of several theologically competing interpretations. No, that is not correct.
Mark Kavitsky says and listen, we're just having a good time.
You're if you're gonna claim that, you need to cite very specific things, because that's not correct.
So let's say what Mark is contending here. Yeah. Even Jesus Christ told 3 disciples not to preach to the Jews, since they already had a covenant. The Catholic Church removed it in the 8th century.
Yeah, that is not true.
Which, historically speaking, at that time, it would be Catholic.
Yeah, and if you're going to make that claim, then you need to really cite very specific things, because that's I'm going to call BS on that. I'm calling BS on that one. I don't think that's true at all. And I think I think Christ was very explicit that the old covenant was gone with him. And I mean, he was the Messiah, right? I mean, and like, this was the Jewish Messiah. He did everything the Jewish Messiah was supposed to do according to prophecy. He was crucified on Passover. Like, how do you not understand that this was literally the Jewish Messiah? And like this was what it was. And yeah, so the vast majority of Jews converted to Christianity. You had a small sect of the Pharisees that refused. And they refused mainly because they had political power that they didn't want to give up.
And this developed into Talmudic Judaism,
yes, right? This developed into
rabbinic.
Yes, rabbinic Judaism and Talmudic Judaism bear very little in resemblance to each other. The group, there's a group that calls themselves Jews today, right? That says they have practiced a religion called Judaism today, but Judaism today has almost no resemblance to historic Judaism, and they don't fulfill the basic tenets of the covenant that God requires of them. They don't perform the sacrifices. They call some things the same words, but they don't believe in the same thing. Their theology is completely fallacy. Yeah, their theology is completely different. It would be unrecognized if you had St. Paul come from his
he'd be like, what the hell
time
is this?
Today and look at their theology, it would be ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like, he wouldn't recognize that. And it's like, so this is the kind of, I think this is a I think that this is a very bad misunderstanding of theology, to think that, and I think if you kind of reason this out, it's pretty like, this suggests that God changes his mind on things. And if God changes his mind, if God changes, he's not God. Like, part of the kind of, I mean, by definition, God is, the name of God in Hebrew, Yahweh, I am, He is he who is
the eternal, uncreated.
Yeah. It's by its very nature, he is unchanging. And so this idea that you would have a
dual covenant,
is nonsense. That applies differently to different groups of people is nonsense.
Well, feel free to push back too, Mark. We're just having a conversation.
I'm happy to debate this all day long. I really am. It really irks me sometimes, quite honestly. I will try my best.
No, it's just we're having a good time. This is what online conversation is about. Bamadiana says, "I'm looking forward to true disclosure."
And this is I don't think that and most of the two largest Christian groups in the world do not preach this idea of dispensationalism. I mean, neither the Catholics or the Orthodox buy into this at all.
True.
And it's only certain fringes of Protestantism that do, and it's become more mainstream, especially in America. One of the things that happens too is it gets very wrapped up in political Zionism, which is something that has been, which people don't realize. Political Zionism has existed for a very long time, far longer than people tend to think it has. And this movement of dispensationalism gets unfortunately entangled in the kind of in the ideas of political Zionism, and I think in many cases it gets co-opted by bad actors who are trying to push the idea of in order to get Christians to accept political Zionism. And
doesn't look like it's been co-opted by good actors.
No, God, So Mark, poke him. God didn't make a mistake. God, but there is an end to that, to that cycle. It's perfected. The old covenant isn't abolished, right? It's fulfilled. It reached its end point. It was never supposed to be an eternal thing. It was a promise to hold you over until the coming of the Messiah. And when the Messiah comes, there will be a new covenant established by him. That was always what the intention was. And it's like, and if you can't, if you I don't know how you read the Old Testament and don't necessarily see that. It was never meant to be some kind of eternal thing. It was always a thing with this is what I'm going to do. And in order to kind of make sure that you are the purpose of the Old Covenant was to make them ready for the Messiah. Ready for the coming of the Christ, right? And because and this gets complicated, I think, because again, there's a very small fringe group, the fringe minority of Jews do not convert to Christianity within the first 200 years. And they kind of maintain that, and then in the 100 years later, after the death of Christ, the temple gets destroyed by the Romans, and that fringe minority gets scattered, right? And as they get scattered, then they get increasingly bizarre in their interpretations of their own scripture, and reinterpreting their own scripture because a lot of the honest Jewish scholars have to admit that by their own the logic of the of the Old Testament, the Messiah should have come by now.
It's a mathematical equation.
It's like the Messiah should have come, and he should have come right in that time period when Christ actually came. So they're in this so you're this increasing the horrid conundrum if you are a modern. If you are like a modern Jewish theologian, where there is no way to interpret your scriptures that don't really say that Christ was the Messiah. In fact,
no. All the equations
but if you accept that, then you're going to you're ousted from your community, from your position, from your power, and so they created the Talmud, and the Talmud becomes the kind of core books of their theology. And the Talmud is not a continuation of any kind of the oral tradition that dates back further than the Middle Ages.
It's a collection of writings.
It's a collection of writings from the Middle Ages. Mm-hmm. There is no evidence to suggest that they are older than that at all. If they had been older than that, you would have found them in the Dead Sea Scrolls. That's the Bane. The Dead Sea Scrolls pretty much confirmed the Christian interpretation and translations of the Bible. So this is like, I unfortunately I realize that people have been led into this. But the Talmud. My point is, the Talmud has become their primary religious text now. They don't read the Torah anymore. They don't derive their theology from the Torah, and that's kind of, because if they did, they would have to acknowledge truth that they don't want to acknowledge.
Speaking of truth, we don't want to acknowledge. Bigfoot is real, says Bamadiana. Aliens are real, and Ep Man didn't unalive himself. You know what? We might not even.
I'll give you two of those. I'll give you Bigfoot and
You might even view,
guy.
But you might even view
aliens
angels as, you might even view aliens as angels or demons, though, right? Like,
so this is So, the I don't think extraterrestrial beings exist. I think extra dimensional beings very likely do.
I go with that,
because I think that's what angels and spirits and demons and such like that are.
But largely, Bamadiana, I mean, I don't think I don't disagree with you that much. I don't think Sam even disagrees with you that much.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to get to Theo's question after this. But Mark says real quick, no, incorrect. The Torah is the most important.
I think that's what some of them will claim, but it's not true.
Okay.
That's not a true claim. They don't read from the Torah. They don't derive their theology or their morality system based on the Torah. And it's like, if you want a good breakdown of this from a position, it's a little hard for me sometimes to talk about this because, like, I grew up Orthodox, and was very immersed into the Orthodox understanding of Scripture and of theology, and so these debates do not emerge in Orthodoxy. Orthodoxy has always clung to a idea of covenant theology from the very earliest. The very earliest Christians have been passed. That's what's been passed down, and so this is a offshoot of a certain Protestant theologies. Tucker Carlson had an interview recently with J.D. Hall, who does a pretty good breakdown of the theological roots of dispensationalism and the origins of it and how it kind of spreads and what happens and how it's kind of become a dominant ideology within Protestantism. But you don't find that in historic Christianity. Like, you do not find that interpretation is antithetical to historic Christianity.
I know Bamadiana says, I know interdimensional beings are real. Extraterrestrial beings have been on Earth longer than us. Possible. Okay, last thing here. Mark Kavitsky says bar mitzvah is from the Torah.
I do not know enough about that.
I don't
to give you an answer to that, so
I'll leave that there. We're going to go on.
It's a lot of times, even the rituals that the kind of modern day Jews have, they use the same terminology, but they're not actually doing the rituals in the same way or doing the same things as part of the rituals. So it gets really tricky when you to find like people say, well, yes, this is in the Bible or in the Old Testament, right? But just because that they're calling what they're doing now that thing doesn't mean that that's how that thing was represented within historic Judaism. And you can back that kind of stuff up with archaeological evidence. Archaeologists working in the Holy Land don't ask the Jews where to find stuff, because they don't tell the truth. They ask the Christians to like, where can we like for dig sites and such, and like, where was this thing located that's referenced in this text? And the Christians actually give them the answers to those. And like, if you ask the Jews, they don't want excavation done, like, because archaeology has largely contradicted what the Jews claim about their own history. Archaeology confirmed that they had women in the temple, like it says in the in the Bible, in the New Testament, right? That they had women living in the temple, because that there was the idea that, like, this was according to their own scriptures, like, this was the time to which the Christ was supposed to be born, right? And so pious families would send their daughters to go be raised in the temple, because like, it was, the understanding was, well, one of these women might become the mother of the Messiah. Mm-hmm. And the Jews for years denied that ever happened. And then the archaeologists found evidence that it did. So it's like, this is,
I'll let you tear into that while I find Theo's comment. Theo asked me an interesting question I didn't think anybody would ask. Let's see.
I'm not sure what you're asking here. I don't understand the question. Or
maybe if you can clarify that, Mark. And I'm going to go to a little bit of a change of pace. Theo, this is like the blind asking the blind for advice, but Theo asked, "Do you have any
single men here, right?"
Yeah. Do you have any dating advice, Mr. B? I would say, like boxing, protect yourself at all times, right? For sure, that's number one. You got to protect yourself at all times. You know what? My honest answer would be, be interested and be interesting. Like, be interested in what the person has to say, and be interesting yourself. Like, be into cool stuff and have cool things to talk. I think a lot of people, though, just show up to conversations not listening and just like a script in their head. So like, I don't know, man, you gotta have that a little bit of je ne sais quoi, you got to know how to talk to girls. It's just but if you listen, I think they like it. I would say listen more than you talk. It makes you look mysterious, and that's always a bonus. And watch a lot of Andrew Tate. Just watch tons of Andrew Tate just on repeat, and just do whatever he says.
Oh my gosh, it's.
Oh, Bama Deanna.
I'm glad to hear that, Bama Deanna. For anyone who wasn't here last time, me and Brandon were doing a stream together, was July 3rd, and Bama Deanna was waiting for news about her your grandson being born.
Well, God bless you in many years.
Yeah, yes.
That is fantastic. Bama Deanna has, I don't know how many grandkids do you have, Bama Deanna? I don't know if this was your first or not. I feel like it wasn't your first, but I don't want to speak out of turn. She has a wonderful family. Yeah, congratulations from Jeff Baum. Yeah, that's awesome. That's what it's all about. Let's see here. Add more episodes to the podcast app. I thought I did. I checked out, and only 2. Let me check on that, Vincent. I didn't realize that. There's a lot of spinning plates, so sometimes I miss something in the shuffle. Juliana has 5. 5 grandkids. Okay, sorry, Mark.
Do the previous comment first, because it's tied into that one. His previous one there.
The Jewish experience with the outside world has changed some processes because it was illegal by the foreign government.
I think that's a myth. I think that's a story that the Jews have told themselves.
Jewish people.
The Jewish people have told themselves. And I don't see actual evidence of that. And then same with your next comment, right? Many of the rituals are still practiced, but in secret. It's like, okay, but you can say that, but if you can't like show that was happening, then we're just supposed to take your word for that, like that this was happening in secret. And it's like, I think that's really just deeply suspect. Like, if you can't, this kind of especially once you get the Christian dominance, the cultural dominance of in the West, the idea that like Jews were deeply persecuted by Christians, it is like, I'm gonna get in trouble for saying this, but I don't care at this point.
Take it easy.
It's kind of I think it's kind of is very much overstated as terms of how actually it's actually a historic anomaly that the Jews were allowed to exist and have their religion. They're the only group that was like paganism. Like, nobody worships Zeus anymore. Nobody worships Thor, right? I mean, not
Islam?
truly, right? Yeah, but
what about Islam in history?
Yeah, Islam's more that's not branching that one. Right? That's a little more complicated.
That's a question. Yeah, it just came to mind.
Islam at times also allowed Christianity and Jews to exist for the same reason, because it saw because there was a historic tie to their own faith. Fair. Now,
Abrahamic, you mean? Like,
yes, because that's because Arabs aren't Abrahamic. They're by their own, according to their own mythology, they're descendants of Abraham as well. So they are an Abrahamic people. They're the children of Ishmael. I do not know if that's the case. And what do you mean taken over by Christianity? Like taken over by Christianity? Like you're talking as if
let people know what the question is or the statement is.
Baptism is still practiced. That is originally a Jewish practice taken over by Christianity. Like, you are correct. Baptism was originally a Jewish practice. There was also a time when Judaism was an evangelizing religion. That was not tied to ethnicity. That was in historically. So it has not always been the case that it's tied to ethnicity within history. Okay, so but what do you mean taken over by Christianity? We use baptism because like we're not this isn't a takeover of Judaism. This is like, I am a son of Abraham, right? I am a son of Abraham. Quite honestly, more so than the people who claim to be Jews today. The Christendom, Christianity, the church is the new Israel. The old Israel is no longer existed. They thought that they were going to get the restoration of the kingdom, and Christ said no. Christ, who was God, who was the Messiah, said, you were wrong in your interpretation of that. What instead I'm going to give you is the church, is giving you the church as the way of salvation. And I'm going to give that not only to you, but to all peoples. Right.
You're saying the flaw there is that people view it as a nation state.
Yeah, it's this weird kind of like you can't. That Judaism gets weird because it's like it's so tied to a specific, and this is kind of unique. That's not unique historically, but it's unique in the modern day that you have. Not unique. There's other examples of this, but they're even more fringe. It's very weird to have a religion that's tied to an ethnic group. And now historically, it's not weird. That was what happened a lot.
No, that's not weird.
And there are still other religions that's the case for. Most of them are dying out. For reasons that are perceived would be kind of pretty obvious. It's not sustainable to do that. So I'm making arguments that like what's kind of strange to me is that there's this linking of ethnic Ashkenazi Jews. They're not even old Jews, by the way. Ethnic Ashkenazi Jews and Judaism, which are seem to be kind of intrinsically linked together. And I'm not talking about the same thing. Like I'm saying that like I don't see them as being the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I don't see, like, I think that the history of this is not on the side of the Ashkenazi Jews at this point. Like their interpretation of their history and their scripture is not correct.
It speaks to why
and
the correct interpretations of history are so important. That's, I think we're seeing that play out in real time. Bam Mediana says it all gets weird to me. I would just caveat this talk, subjects like this, with saying it's not about
no
feelings and personal interpretations. It's a form of math.
Yeah,
so you're really like working through this logical math problem and trying to find the correct answer. That's it's all. It's not meant to be like a comparison of opinions so much as just in a comparison of answers.
I believe in objective, like I believe in objective truth. Right?
Yeah, it's capital T truth.
And to an extent, logic can lead us to objective truth. No, I don't believe that fully, but it's. I think you could only get the full truth through revelation. But logic is still a tool in ascertaining the truth, and it's like.
Bamadiana says that's why she uses numerology.
Yeah. Well, not again. I'm not gonna bite on that one.
Oh, Sam, virtually shaking with his answer to that.
Well, here's the thing, right? I was actually at church the other day, and I was telling somebody, is like, those days where you wake up and you just feel off for no reason, And I was like, and then like you people who like really into astrology or whatever and say, well, it's because, this Mercury's in retrograde or whatever, And I was thinking, I was just telling him, I was like, honestly, that's about as good of an explanation as you're going to get for some of these things.
That's a fair point. Yeah.
I think when you just kind of like, like I had like weird cramps for no reason, or just like, I'm kind of in a bad mood for no reason. And so yeah, people kind of come up with explanations, and I'm being a little bit flippant and joking, but it's like, it's like, well, I also don't, I mean, it's like, it's yeah. Okay. So, yeah.
Okay. Let's see if I think we're all caught up on the chats. We got your books. Is there almost at 3 hours? Wow, that flew by. Well, is there anything else that you want to touch on before we get out of here? Bamadiana saying, I believe all religions are man-made.
Well, in a way that's true, but it's also because Christ was in fact a
man. I don't think we push back
and is man and God, right? But it's also I'm not sure what you mean by that. It's like people interpret things. It doesn't mean that like that you can't have man-made things that were divinely inspired or that were revealed through divine revelation, but then like created by human hands and in human interpretation. It's like that. I don't think that's. Yeah, so I'm not sure what you mean by that in one sense.
I think that's a great take. I think that is something that you could have a nuanced conversation between yourself and Bamadiana with.
So yeah. So like in Genesis, and it says in the earth, that gives you the 6 days of creation, right? Right. And I don't believe that there's a literal 6 days, a literal 24-hour period in which the universe is created, right? Because I think that we can through other forms of learning, we can see that that's not the case. Now, what I believe actually happened was Moses was given a revelation of creation, right? And he wrote it down in a way that he could explain it, that he could find words to write it down in. And so he wrote it down as 6 days. As 6 completed acts, right? Which is what days kind of means in the old Hebrew sense anyway. Day is a completed act, and no, I don't think that that's true. But Moses, I don't believe Moses was Akhenaten. What was I saying? So if you look at the 6 days of creation in Genesis as 6 as an ordering of how the universe was created, Okay, so let there be light, and there was light. First thing happens is light, the Big Bang. God created the heavens and the earth, space and matter. Right? He created matter and space. Right? And it's like, and so there's an ordering to how things were created in the universe. And I think what's actually really fascinating is that what we kind of have confirmed, or at least speculated with science, is that it actually pretty much matches up with the ordering within the days of creation in Genesis. And that's not something that they could have known in the days of Moses outside of Revelation. And so it's like, if I don't think that everything in is I don't think it was it was meant to be interpreted as 6 literal days. And I think it was written as that because, again, it was like if you were imagine if you were Moses wrote Genesis is the most commonly and I think the first Genesis, Exodus, and
Bamadana is
one other, I believe. I think the first 3 books of the Bible are attributed to Moses. And as what was revealed to him by God, he wrote it down. And that's how you get that story, right?
Real quick round of applause for Moses.
Yeah, and
know myself,
but I wonder if the same revelation was given to someone today, they would probably write it down in very different, in a very different way, because
like terabytes
based of what we know about things today. So yes, a revelation was given to Moses, but he's still a human. Mm-hmm. He doesn't know what atoms are. He doesn't know what the the names of these gases that are that these forces are. He writes them down in ways that he can understand. Mm-hmm. And it's like, and I think honestly he did a pretty good job of that. So yeah, Moses wrote it. He was by a revelation from God, right? That's what I believe, right? So yeah.
Isn't that called presupposition, when there's a presupposition that at some point all axioms or all worldviews are circular?
In a sense, yeah, but it's a I fully acknowledge that my worldview is based on certain unprovable axioms that I have to accept as a leap of faith.
Essentially all are.
But that's literally every belief system. Yeah. Every belief system has those. Atheism has those. Mm-hmm. They just don't like to acknowledge that they do because it gets really, it reveals that their belief system is nonsense. Because you have to buy into, if you believe that it's way more of a logical, I don't know how you are an atheist and you escape rational solipsism.
Explain that term.
Rational solipsism is the a philosophic argument, right? That essentially so solipsism is the delusion that you are the only real thing in the universe, and that your experiences are real, but everything else is an illusion, essentially. And just an interpretation of your own consciousness. And there's no way to prove that that's not the case outside of belief in something that's higher than yourself. And so yeah, my I don't think atheism can argue outside. You can kind of reason your way to my own consciousness is real. That's Descartes does that, right? I think therefore, cogito ergo sum. And I think therefore I am, right? I mean, it's a little more complicated than that, but Descartes ultimately can't his only way to rationalize out of solipsism, though, it's like I can logically infer that my consciousness is real, that my mind is real, that my thoughts are real. But I don't have any reason to believe outside of God, that anything else is. And the reason you can, and he argues that you can believe that if God is all powerful and all knowing and all wise, there is no need for God. Like God has no need to deceive people, right? So if God has no need to deceive you, right, you can infer that the creation is real, that things are real, because there isn't, a need to
make that
to put up an illusion in front of you, right? But outside of a theistic understanding, it's very, I think it's impossible to argue yourself out of solipsism.
Just to clarify, Bama Deanna is not arguing from an atheist worldview. She's
I know. You've elaborated on what your spirituality is. I will. Yeah.
She also wants to know what is Christ consciousness.
I am not sure what you're getting at there. In Bama Deanna, I obviously I don't believe what you believe in many ways, but I'm very much a live and let live person.
Yeah, it's all in good fun.
I think a just society is one that kind of can accommodate a lot of different peoples and a lot of different beliefs, and so I have no interest in like oppressing anybody else for their beliefs. But as long as I'm not oppressed for mine, and as long as I'm able to say what I believe is true, because I believe in truth. I believe that truth is transcendent and will win out in the end. That there is no illusion that is strong enough to override truth. And I believe that the truth is Jesus Christ, and that truth will win out regardless of what happens. And so I'm not, I don't feel like I need to necessarily I'm not gonna like try to convert you or whatever. It's like I'm not,
Yeah, no, it's just interesting adult conversation.
Yeah, it seems like I've appreciated your comments. Like you've had some interesting comments, and forced me to think about things, which I like to do. That's why I like to do these. It makes me think about stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully this is implied, but I really appreciate everybody here and just this exchange of ideas. It's just fun. It's just a good time. Elite Super Grunt says he's glad he went to catechism. I'm glad you went to catechism too, Elite Super Grunt. Stay on that rosary, bro. Theo Wise says we need some HOKC dating stories, bro. I'll think some up for you, okay? Because there's
my worst. I will only ever tell you one, and I will tell you it's really bad. It's really bad. Okay. So I was kind of into this girl, and we were not quite going out, but we were kind of like we had good interactions. I started like we would like volunteer together at Caritas, which is like a soup kitchen, homeless shelter kind of thing in Austin. And like I invited her out for dinner on kind of like, I was just kind of inviting out for a date, right? Basically. We went out and she asked me what my opinion on her becoming a nun was.
Oh, well, that's
and I don't remember actually what happened the rest of that evening. I kind of hope that I got through it without like just making a horrible fool of myself. But I don't really remember. Let's put it that way. That's as close as I've ever gone to. Oh man, my relationship status is single, and I don't see that changing in the near future.
It's a jungle out there, man. It's rough. I'm trying to think of like.
I can laugh about the story now. It's been enough years.
Yeah, the guy got many like that too that weren't funny at the time.
It's not funny at the time, that's for sure.
Theo, I'm going to bring some for you on the next stream, but I have to find a way to make them YouTube appropriate. I would say that I don't want to get myself, I'm not even saying like in a risque kind of way. Just, I have got so many stories that I've got to refine for YouTube. I would say, I'll tell you one, like I went to, the girl I was dating took me to some like multinational get together at the hostel here. That's on Town Lake. You know what I'm talking about? There's like this multinational.
No, I feel like I see where this is going now.
So I go there and it's a whole like, it's a whole celebration of many cultures. Hey, that's cool. I'm all for it. And then at the very end of it, they pass out these little blue bracelets, and it's like, it ends up being like a promotional event for the UN. And so I just like sat there and grumbled about how much I hate the UN for like half an hour, and she was very confused about it, and it became a whole argument afterwards. But that's just one of many stories where my I've got a lot more, man. That was not the best, but I got a bunch. I'll think of one. Most of them, you know what, Theo? I got one more piece of advice for you, bro. Learn to play the guitar. It's like 10 minutes. Put in 10 minutes. Learn 2 chords. It's all you really. The rest of this stuff, be interested, whatever. Yeah. Don't disregard that. Just learn to play guitar. That's all I really. You need C and you need G. The rest of it you can make up. But C and G. Hey Sam, what is your opinion on Scientology? If you want to hit that real quick.
I agree with you. What's your statement in the next?
It's evil. Yeah. I agree with that.
Pretty bizarre. That's for sure.
Boy. It's been 2 years since my husband. Next month, 2 years since my husband passed. I knew that. I still wait for him to come. I know that feeling, Bamadiana. So you're in our prayers for sure. Bamadiana also says play guitar by John Mellencamp. Anything. Pick whoever. Yeah, Mellencamp's always good. Mellencamp. If you're playing Mellencamp, stick the cigs up in the sleeve there. You're good to go. And Theo, I'm not telling you to smoke, right? Not good. Don't smoke. But if you do, put the cigarette in the headstock of the guitar there. It looks really cool. I am waiting for Scarlett Johansson Fembots. Well, you might have to wait a little while longer.
I don't know, man. There's a robot.
Don't give up on the game yet, Elite Super Grunt. You're an Elite Super Grunt. There's a woman out there for you.
There is a robot brothel in Houston opening up at some point.
Bamadiana, I know the song is called Play Guitar. Maybe I didn't say it correctly, but yeah, I know the song is called Play Guitar. I would say learn. Man, I don't know. That's a good. What's the best song to learn? Oh yeah, I know. Learn Wish You Were Here. Just learn like the intro part to Wish You Were Here. Boom, boom, boom. It impresses everybody and girls love it. Let's see. Every girl at some point has a Pink Floyd poster on their
I feel
wall.
like we should have the disclaimer that you were looking for dating advice from 2 single guys, right? It's like
you're asking for you're asking what the movie is like from 2 blind guys. You know what I mean? We can't see.
Yeah.
Let's see. I'm learning fiddle right now. Oh, very cool. That's my dad just learning.
Oh, that's awesome. I would love to. That'd be
I will play guitar on this stream at some point. I got to bring my acoustic.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so other than that, I think we're caught up. I think we are all good for tonight. We'll be back. I might have an episode out tomorrow night, depending on if the editor gets it done. So if we don't, then we'll come back and stream in the next few days. Always have a blast doing these. Sam, thank you so much for being here. Always have a lot of fun. You've been promising for 2 years now. Look, here. I don't know if you guys can hear this, but I'll play you Wish You Were Here. Can you hear that?
A little bit.
Yeah, you can't really hear it. I need like a longer
just like can you stand up? And I mean that might.
I don't know if you can hear that, but
it's very faint, unfortunately.
Yeah. I actually do play. I just need the acoustic. So I know, but that's technically, Bamadiana, that's technically playing guitar on the stream. You know what I mean?
I promised I was going to do something in Byzantine chant at some point too.
Yeah, that's true, man. We got to drag you out too.
I got to find a time when my throat's not dying.
That's a good point. We'll let you off the hook tonight for that. But okay, all right. So I'm about to sell a guitar and amp. I'm always in the business of selling guitars and amps. That's the bane of playing guitar. But okay, well, y'all, thank you so much for coming out, and we'll be back soon in the next couple of days. Thank you again to Sam for coming out. Thanks to everybody for watching, and I think that's all I've got. Oh yeah, be sure to go watch the latest episode, Victorial. I think it's the best episode I've ever done. It's the longest one I've ever done, the most expansive one I've ever done. I think everybody here will love it. I'm not just like hyping myself up. I think it's a really good episode. And what else? Oh yeah, we have hopefully an episode out tomorrow. And then the next episode after that is going to be on Joaquin Murrieta. So stay tuned. A lot of big stuff coming. If you stream tomorrow night, make it 11 p.m. Yeah, it should be 11 p.m. Yeah, it should be 11 p.m. Eastern time. And thanks for all your good questions tonight, Mark. It was fun engaging with you. Guitar would be great. Yeah, Theo. See, it's easy peasy, man. Just YouTube some YouTube videos, and they'll get you hooked up. Your dating life will never be the same.
And again, no hard feelings, Mark. I mean, I look.
No.
I'm never going to shy away from saying what I believe, but I'm also
you make
not
the
gonna,
show.
But I'm not. Like, but I'm not gonna. I'm also not gonna. You know, I'm not. I'm gonna at least try not to insult what other people believe either. It's like this is what I believe. This is why I believe it. This is my reasons for that. But that's, you know, I dialogue like is the only way to kind of get to an understanding of the truth, really. So it's
we're good faith people having good faith conversations. Truly, I mean that. Like, we're all adults having good faith conversations, and I appreciate the engagement. Without the pushback, without the engagement, we're just two dudes here talking. So it is really appreciated, you guys, and all your engagement, Mark especially. So thank you so much for giving us some pushback tonight. But with all that said, we're looking forward to seeing y'all again soon. And God bless. Have a good night, and we will talk to you soon. All right, bye-bye.